My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system, which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California. Notice: intellectual property theft is particularly egregious and equally unlawful where the sole inventor and creator of the intellectual property is the targeted individual. Erica Lorraine Spencer, subject to the unconstitutional and inhumane government system of gang stalking, otherwise referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices, because of which the intellectual property created by the targeted individual, who is, in fact, Erica Lorraine Spencer, as the intellectual property also proves, serves to establish via evidence and expose the existence of criminal surveillance and thus an inherent threat posed by the U.S. government and the civilian population sharing engagement in the unlawful system. Such evidence that includes all of the content created by Erica Lorraine Spencer, images, videos, audio, etc., belongs solely and entirely to Erica Lorraine Spencer only and is necessarily published online in order to protect her life, safety, and liberty as the targeted individual, who is also the intellectual property owner, no less protected from theft procured through targeting by a public entity. Theft of any intellectual property belonging to Erica Lorraine Spencer, which is necessarily committed while she, being both creator and inventor, remains oppressed by the public entity via criminal surveillance, is a criminal and inhumane means of infringement under all circumstances and not protected nor enforceable pursuant to any invalid or fraudulent acts of copyright, trademarks, patents, etc., including as it pertains to any ideas associated with or generated from the intellectual property or the intellectual property owner, Erica Lorraine Spencer, whether creative, business, or otherwise, nor does the intellectual property owner consent to any such means of infringement and theft. Erica Lorraine Spencer here. The following is an audio version of video evidence that is captured for purposes of mass distribution, which is why I am capturing it and sharing it on the podcast for evidentiary purposes and also to reveal the wealth of documentation that extends beyond what it is that I document on podcasts. Much of the video and images will be published onto the YouTube channel, the P.O.C, and it is also shared on the Google Drive. Again, this is for purposes of revealing what I remain subject to, which is federal group stalking and monitoring. It is a demonic system of state surveillance that the government is practicing in concert with the people of the state, and it should be known and well understood that for the government to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, this is a crime that is committed with a criminal purpose to threaten the life of an American citizen. This is to conspire to murder and or permanently kidnap an American citizen while engaging in a perpetual sex offense in concert with the people of the state. That is the domestic enemy that's going to be prosecuted, representing the agency, are in fact demons under a fake sun. This and flying over the top of my head, and doing so as I'm capturing images of their being prosecuted as terrorists while the demon possessed are molesting with impossible light. This is also molesting with impossible light while you walk through it. And what Starla and Abigail and Alexander were engaging in at the OVITT Family Community Library, where I'm being terrorized in the parking lot and engineered light flying over the top of my head, following me from the entrance to the back parking lot. Mike Lorenz is openly exposing the fact that he is an enemy of this country, and so are the people of the state. The domestic terrorists are the mentally ill, suicidal, self-destructive psychopaths who are engaged in serial killings as a corrupt society and using absurd instruments such as planes and helicopters to target American citizens whom they together conspire to murder, and they are the demon-possessed. Mike Lorenz and Derek Williams are going to be prosecuted as the enemies of the country. They're sharing in what is the pattern of conduct. This is the fake sun at 7:37 a.m. I'm standing at 536 North Euclid Avenue at 11 o'clock in the morning, and in the natural environment where demons are exposed as being gang stalkers in the unnatural environment, because the natural environment would not include this fake sun being on the same street over me, the same person, over the top of my head at 11 a.m., where demons are engaged in what is crossing path. This is the daytime version of the demon-possessed stalking with light. They're driving in impossible light. It's on the sides. While the fake sun is on the driver's side of their vehicles, you can see the luminescence. They're driving in and monitoring with the terrorist leader, Ontario Police Department, an agency engaged in the conspiracy to murder while they target an American citizen, and they obviously do so. It's obvious because of the fake sun, it's obvious because of the engineered light, and it's also obvious because I'm engaged in use of my phone again, which the entity is keeping under surveillance, all the demons together, while they are stalking as a population that's mentally ill. These are the domestic enemies. These are obsessed stalkers. These are the demon-possessed that conspire murder. This is what Tracy Banks and Jason Fields and the entity that's engaged in repeated kidnapping, the people of the state at the OVITT Family Community Library, gang stalking me with that agency in the parking lot, they're going to prison. And this does not ever, under any circumstances, result in what is defaming the character of that American citizen that's being targeted in the obvious manner that the Ontario Police Department have exhibited, which is the prosecution of the entire state of California and the mandated change of legislation, state and federal. The entity defames the character of the American citizen that's being targeted by a mentally ill population. This is audible activity, relevant positioning, and light activity. They're demons, and they're absurdly psychopathic. There's no coincidence what's flying over the top of my head everywhere that I'm at in the specific environment. This is P.O.C. This is the prosecution for terrorism of Mike Lorenz, the Ontario Police Department, and the state of California.
All right, the video documentation that you just listened to, this is the direct evidence exposing domestic terrorists in the United States, domestic terrorists that are going to be prosecuted as the enemies of this country that they are, while they target American citizens in secret, target them in order to take their lives and take whatever the domestic enemies that are targeting them surmise that they can steal, if it's your money, your property, your reputation, your invention, or because they are demons who are mentally ill, who are gratified from the suffering of others, to commit what are serial killings, sacrifices unto Satan, which is what Mike Lorenz and the Ontario Police Department are practicing as a pattern of conduct in concert with the people of the state. And as I identify this terrorist agency that is exposed as one that is not engaged in law enforcement, but is actually engaged in criminal surveillance in furtherance of the criminal conspiracy to commit murder of the one whom they are, as a matter of direct evidence, long existing, engaged in what is targeting, which is pursuant to surveillance in violation of federal stalking statute 22618 subsections 1 and 2. While they are engaged in what is mentally ill behavior. The stalking with light is what Mike Lorenz and the Ontario Police practice. The stalking amongst amplified audible activity is what the demon-possessed Ontario Police Department, that agency, practices, while they are engaged in what is gang stalking, stalking in the path. Doing so also using helicopters, which is also mentally deranged and highly antisocial, psychopathic with regard to deriving pleasure from not only criminal stalking, but also targeting in furtherance of murder with a population that shares that gratification, that shares that mental illness, that shares that criminal pattern of conduct. This is gang violence, okay? This is gang violence that the Ontario Police Department, that is Mike Lorenz. This is a terrorist leader, not a police chief. This is the actual pattern of conduct that this state actor is practicing, and is practicing while I'm documenting not any ongoing coincidence, but an ongoing directly exposed pattern. This pattern is relevant to the criminal conduct and the targeting that is facilitated by the rest of the state, including while you hear that entity engage in what is monitoring through amplification in the background under a fake sun. That's exactly what I captured on video, what you listened to. Monitoring now exhibiting mental illness after they engage in acts of gang violence. It's documented, and they engage in more gang violence. This is the serial killings that well, not just this venue, but this entity practices routinely, and they engage in this while they are, again, mentally ill and driven to more mentally ill behaviors, while they are outraged by being exposed, while they are outraged for being identified as what they actually are. Okay, and gang violence, which is relevant to federal group stalking monitoring, group stalking. The prosecution of domestic enemies is what is mandated upon exposing gang violence at the level that the state of California, the U.S. government is practicing. The prosecution of domestic enemies, such as Mike Lorenz and Derek Williams, who was a part of this because Mike Lorenz is merely a domestic terrorist leader that came into position following the resignation, which is how terrorist leaders are removing themselves, resigning from corrupt positions where they're targeting as a career path and calling themselves malicious and deceptive misnomers such as a police chief when that agency is engaged in surveillance, which the evidence proves, including the evidence that you just listened to. There is no coincidence when the entity is in the parking lot of the OVITT Family Community Library in the specific environment. That is, my shadow is laid out like a deck of cards around me, upright, magnified in size in front of me, and the demon-possessed people of the state are stalking with light, just like you are listening to is what is going on under the fake sun. They're stalking with light when you have multiple shadows at nightfall. That's the same pattern of conduct. In the supernatural environment, the specific environment, there is no coincidence when the entity is engaged in what is using a helicopter to fly over the top of my head, and I also happen to be engaged in documenting that ongoing pattern of harassing and targeting me. And this is relevant to what is seeking to psychologically torture upon what is sexually violating what I'm also documenting. The entity engages in these gang acts of violence when I document it, which again, when I don't say a word to anyone about it and I just capture it on my phone, I'm subject to these group acts of violence and furtherance of psychological torture and ultimately murder, kidnapping that this agency is also practicing while they're engaged in surveillance with the people of the state whom they rely on to engage in the federal offense of criminal summoning while they are sharing in surveillance. That's their presence under the fake sun. That's their engagement in what is the supernatural, light flinging around when you're driving under what you would like to contend is the natural environment, which it's clearly not. More evidence, by the way, that they're mentally ill. Also engaging what is surveillance as a population in furtherance of murder, secretly, in plain view, in the demonic ways, mental illness and gang violence practiced by this entity that is headed by Mike Lorenz and previously Derek Williams, who are both subject to a prosecution for the conspiracy to commit murder, as my evidence envelops both of them engaged in what is kidnapping me, targeting me, psychologically torturing me, sexually violating me, and literally stalking, keeping me under surveillance as of a matter of evidence since 2018. Derek Williams remains a part of that criminal case, and you are not going to resign out of a federal prosecution for domestic terrorism, and you remain a part of that criminal conspiracy. It's the entire state of California. It is the U.S. government. So Derek Williams is being prosecuted. He does not cease to be a part of that pattern of conduct. And as I'm documenting, as you listen to, the entity flies directly over the top of my head, just like they did fly over the top of my head at the OVITT Family Community Library. As I walk to the back parking lot, after that same agency engages in what is the mentally ill behavior of psychopathic pacing by flying in circles over and over and over and over again upon my exit of that OVITT Family Community Library in the specific environment where this entity of demons that are stalking under a fake sun, the fake sun that's still over my head at this same exact address at 11 and 12 o'clock in the afternoon, remaining on this same block at 11, 12, 6:45 in the evening, where this agency is also surrounded with science in order to put domestic terrorists that are engaged in serial killings and kidnappings and framing American citizens, bearing false witness and relying on the domestic terrorists, the people of the state who are engaging in a criminal system of targeting with them as a mentally ill population. They're a mentally ill population of demons that are encouraged, facilitated, and who share in that domestic terrorism with the Ontario Police Department, who represent the state of California. The Ontario Police Department are gang stalking, in other words, with the Ontario International Airport. with the Ontario Fire Department, with American Medical Response. It is all criminal conduct that the Ontario Police Department, that corrupt agency that commits the kidnappings, that are facilitating violence as a gang, that are engaging in what is trying to frame you until they are able to take the life of an American citizen. And that corrupt agency that is stalking me in helicopters is doing so in furtherance of and engaging in psychological torture and in furtherance of the conspiracy to commit murder, which is what that Ontario Police Department, that corrupt agency, Mike Lorenz, Derek Williams, are guilty of, while anyone of that entity commits that murder, okay? Engages in any fatal car accident while you're being gang stalked is murder committed by the Ontario Police Department and facilitated by Mike Lorenz and Derek Williams. Any criminal act such as attempted murder, poisoning you while you're being gang stalked by, and anyone of that entity engaged in that is attempted murder that is engaged in by and facilitated by the domestic terrorists Mike Lorenz and Derek Williams and the entire agency, that entire gang of the Ontario Police. These are gang members, not police officers, not a police department, not engaged in law enforcement, engaged in what is criminal surveillance, and they are absurdly mentally ill. This is directly relevant to the criminal defamation that Lisa Rogan committed, and that every gang stalking official calling themselves judges of the Rancho Cucamonga Superior Court and of the state of California, for example, the Arrowhead Regional Medical Center that maintains a mental health court where they engaged in kidnapping in conformity to this very pattern of conduct. That's why the fake sun is over me while I'm being kidnapped at that facility. That's why the entities engaged in this pattern of conduct, the gang stalking, with the people of the state who stay at that facility in that specific environment. And it includes the gang stalking so-called medical professionals. This is the prosecution of such domestic terrorists who are being prosecuted while I'm capturing the specific environment and ongoing targeting by the U.S. government. That is the Ontario Police Department, who are acting in conformity to that P.O.C. with the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, with San Bernardino County, which is Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, the state of California, which is the Rancho Cucamonga Superior Court, domestic terrorists, and those engaging in criminal defamation in order to kidnap, like Lisa Rogan, those engaging in what is the evasion of service of process in order to accomplish the criminal conspiracy to commit murder. That is San Bernardino Courthouse, the Justice Center, Thomas Garza, and the entity that's engaging in gang stalking the entire time. This is the entity that's engaging in that, and that's relevant to the video that you just listened to. While the entity is stalking by plane, flying next to me while the fake sun is over me, flying over my head and around me in helicopter while the fake sun is over me, and the fake sun is still here 5 hours from now. That's speaking to the specific environment, that science that is also prosecuting in addition to what is the evidence on its face. While the entity is defaming the character of the targeted individual, that is the entity that is admitting through their lies. That is, I already told you that Satan is always admitting to what it is actually guilty of. Meaning Satan, that is acting through Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, the state of California, these gang stalking courts that are using what is criminal defamation to engage in kidnapping and theft. They want to steal my money and property. That's why Tracy Banks has a secret conservatorship. That's why they have fake death certificates. That's why they've engaged in what is accusing me of crimes that I never committed. And they did so with regard to crimes that I've never been interrogated for, by the way. But yet they're engaged in what is targeting me in helicopters and doing so. That's targeting me specifically. It's not ambiguous. You're flying over the top of my head while I'm also engaged. It's relevant to what I'm doing on my phone. I'm engaging in that which is relevant to those who are around me, even though I'm not talking to them about it. But yet I'm being targeted while you're flying over the top of my head in helicopters. That specific environment is also relevant to what is targeting in that environment. That's beyond a coincidence. It's also with regard to science, which is to a degree. There is no possible way that that's a coincidence, and it's also what I'm capturing on a daily basis. You're flying over my head amongst the supernatural while I'm on my device, and the timestamps of the screenshots that I'm capturing regarding gang violence by the same agency, by this population, and then as soon as I take my head from underneath my covers, the entity is already there, ready to fly over the top of my head by helicopter, engaging in what is an act of rage because of what it is that I'm documenting. Those are the mentally ill that are maniacal and incapable of controlling themselves while they keep me under surveillance on my device. That is shared by the demons that are driving in that engineered light. Sunlight is not appearing on the passenger side of your car when the sun is on the driver's side of your car. Sunlight is not appearing on the curb. That is the opposite of that sun when the sun is on the driver's side of that street. On the opposite side of that street. Sunlight, that's criminal summoning by license plate. 26026 handicap, while the Ontario Police Department are stalking under the fake sun. The entities engaging in that, that's the entity flying over the top of my head while I'm documenting them. That's that same agency that's engaged in gang violence. The entities, and that's at, by the way, 8:05 a.m. That's Mike LORENZ and Derek Williams that are going to be prosecuted. That agency that commits kidnapping, they're going to prison. The people that state criminal summon, engage in criminal summoning with them are going to prison. So the entity is engaging in what is driving. You can see in the video where you watch it, you listen to it, but they're driving in impossible light. It's appearing on the passenger side of their car. There is no light that's luminescing when the sun is on the driver's side of your vehicle. There is no sunlight that's appearing on the curb that's going to create like this light activity while they're driving through, light that's luminescing on the curb that is opposite of where the sun is on the opposite side of that street. That's light activity while they're monitoring, while they're all together stalking and psychologically torturing the one that they know is documenting them as an entity. That's also no coincidence. That's the mentally ill that are stalking with light. That's what you see them doing last night. Let me give you that license plate where the entity flies over the top of my head in the parking lot of OVITT Family Community Library. And as that demon is stalking in the path with light, exhibiting mental illness, which is another iteration of what you listen to and what you'll see if you watch the video, that's exactly what they're doing at what is right here at this street, where they are stalking with light, driving in all manner of engineered light. License 9EZK933 is stalking with light last night. That's the nighttime iteration of the same thing. Multiple shadows is giving you context with regard to what they are accomplishing while their headlights are on. They are stalking in the path with light, and what happens? The entity flies over the top of my head while I am engaged in what is use of my device to document, which again, the entity is aware of because they're engaging in surveillance. You don't have an ongoing series of coincidences. And I want to be clear, LAPD that committed murder in Los Angeles of an American citizen were stating that they had their sirens on and they were engaged in what is rushing to an emergency. That's called criminal summoning, and LAPD is already a documented domestic terrorist and already a documented gang member. They're engaged in what is murder, as I referred to on the news. This is the criminal summoning that the Ontario Police Department are engaging in, and they are monitoring not only my genitalia, they're not only monitoring what are American citizens' most minute movement as demons who know exactly where you're at and what you're doing, what you're saying, what you are thinking before you say it, because these are demons spiritually monitoring you and also physically monitoring your person. They're doing so in an environment that defies science, okay? Defies nature, common sense, and logic. The LAPD is committing murder, and they are engaged in what is conditioning the masses while they publish this murder that is given a narrative with regard to what is the likely non-liability of that murderer. That is the LAPD, because they sounded their sirens and they are ostensibly engaged in what is rushing to an emergency. You just listen to what is criminal summoning that's committed in furtherance of what is murder of myself while they're engaged in no rush to an emergency. The emergency is that I'm speaking very damning and indicting evidence regarding a pattern of conduct. That's what the LAPD are freely engaging in as well. It's called criminal summoning. It is pursuant to what is criminal surveillance, not the rushing to any legitimate emergency. Even where they go to what is the scene of a car crash, they are doing so in the specific environment where it is serving criminal surveillance. They're monitoring me while the fake sun is over me on this same street where it's still present 5 hours later over the top of no one else's head. It's over the top of my head where this population is proven by science and through my ongoing public investigation to be targeting in furtherance of murder and engaged in what is sexual violence and psychological torture. They are doing so while the Ontario Police engage in criminal summoning. This is what the LAPD are engaging in when you are looking at the newscast regarding the loss of life of an American citizen whose presence the LAPD, the demon-possessed, they knew exactly where that young man was. They knew exactly what he was doing, and that was an intentional taking of life. That was a sacrifice. That was, in other words, a murder in tribute to Satan while the demon-possessed are engaging in this criminal system. The Ontario Police are monitoring me, aware of exactly what it is that I'm stating. They are aware of every syllable that comes out of my mouth, as are the demon-possessed that are all under a fake sun and driving around like mentally ill population that they are, engaged in what is psychopathic means of stalking. Their mentally ill pattern of conduct is going to be used to diagnose them. It's going to be used to deport them. It's going to be used to put them in prison. And that's the same with every terrorist agency. The federal government is going to use every angle of federal law to deport, to imprison, to mentally assess the terrorists of the Ontario Police, the Ontario Fire Department, the Ontario International Airport, the people of the state. These domestic terrorists are going to be targeted with the laws that are created, that are already in existence and that which are created to target terrorists who pose a threat to the public. And that's exactly what the Ontario Police Department posed. They are sharing in the same pattern of conduct as the LAPD, who are not ignorant about an American citizen being in the street when they are sounding their sirens and they're engaging what is manifesting as demons. Those are demons that are engaging what are light activity, relevant positioning, and audible activity. They are very much aware of where you are as a population. I'm talking to everyone at the same time. They are not engaged in ignorance and not aware that you're at that intersection on your bike and that they're going to hit you. They intend to commit what is a murder and control the narrative, stating that it is an accident, unintentional, and moreover, they're not even accountable for it because of their position, because of what they were engaged in, which is sounding their sirens, which is nothing other than a cloak to protect themselves from committing sacrifices unto Satan, murder, okay? That's the entity that commits murder as an entity, by the way, because all of the people of the state in Los Angeles shared in that murder of that American citizen. These are the demon-possessed that are murdering each other, and they also murder the targeted individual, which is myself. Okay, I just want to be clear on that. You just heard the Ontario Police engage in criminal summoning. That's what LAPD is engaging in when they reported on the news to you as an unintentional loss of life of an American citizen. That's a lie. It's a false narrative. And it's also deterring from what is actual surveillance that is underway, including those that are reporting the news to you. They are engaged in surveillance. They're reporting the news to you under the fake sun. They're reporting the news to you amongst the people of the state that are pacing all around them, monitoring in that specific environment. The same ones that are bearing false witness, stalking and monitoring in places like bathrooms, engaging in what is surrounding you while the terrorists fly over your head and in circles around you. Those are the ones that are also reporting the news. Okay, they share in what is maintaining a false narrative. That's how the system of surveillance works in the United States. Okay, it is currently 8:12 a.m. License 8ROS230. The entity that's engaged in criminal summoning is the entity that's engaged in kidnapping together as well. The OVITT Family Community Library, very unhelpful with regard to the prosecution for kidnapping on June 16, 2022, where the entity is kidnapping R. Nunn, H. Chiapani, Medina, Corey Walton, 80548, that's the badge number, R. Guerrero. They're going to prison, and so are the people of the state. Daisy, Sean Thrasher, the entity that's engaged in what is not only kidnapping, because they're engaging in surveillance as you are looking at the specific environment, they're engaged in surveillance while I'm documenting being gang stalked in the parking lot where they're working at nightfall in the specific environment, and they committed kidnapping in June of 2022, for which there will be bodies in prison for it. The entities engaging in the ongoing P.O.C, and this is exposing the malice with which they made malicious assertions. Not only have I never violated children, I don't have any children, and I'm not even one that has any sort of history engaging in anything remotely close to that. However, the demon-possessed do. Those that vocalize that threat do, while they're also engaging in surveillance of children's genitalia in the bathrooms of that OVITT Family Community Library, and the very pedophiles engaging in parroting that defamatory accusation maliciously made while they're engaged in surveillance and know very well that I am no pedophile. The entity engaged in this pursuant to a pattern of conduct, and those kidnappers of the OVITT Family Community Library gang stalk me with that agency that's flying over my head everywhere that I'm going, including at that venue where the fake sun rises and sets and where the fake moon is over me and I'm subject to ongoing terrorism by that agency. They share in a pattern of conduct with regard to criminal summoning and furtherance of kidnapping, which is exactly what happened on June 16, 2022. And they are going to federal prison along with the gang members of the Ontario Police Department, and Mike LORENZ is being prosecuted as a domestic terrorist leader, sharing that with what is Derek Williams. The entity is engaged in what is sexual assault and battery, touching me all night long, stalking, engaging in what is stalking with sensational activity, because obsessed stalkers that are demon-possessed want to make an impact on you one way or another. That is while you're driving in the street, which is not creating any earthquake, it's causing the bus bench to vibrate. The bus bench that is securely mounted to the ground in the concrete, that's not creating any earthquakes right now while I'm sitting there looking at the demons. These are cowards who are of Satan, who don't want you to look at them. While you look at them, you're not experiencing those supernaturals, but while they feel like they're hidden, you're engaged in all manner of experiencing earthquakes while they're driving by. While you are engaged in, that's called amplified audible activity. Also, as you can hear the train, that's also demons that are engaging in that under things like a fake moon and a fake sun, while the entity is engaging in surveillance. This is the entity that is engaged in what is, as an agency, repeated kidnappings, which was a failure. It was an admission of the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department and the State of California Rancho Cucamonga Superior Court and the Arrowhead Regional Medical Center that maintains a mental health court where they're engaged in kidnappings. And they have no jurisdiction because, number one, they're engaged in surveillance, and secondly, because they engaged in kidnapping. And they thought that even someone of my caliber with my skill set, that it doesn't matter who you are and what background that you have, if they say that you're mentally ill and they say that you're a criminal and they say that you're a sex offender, then that's what you are, because that's what the gang members dictate. And that is not how you practice law. That's not even the practice of medicine. That's not even how logic works. That's totally nothing other than ongoing corruption. And by the way, they are the absurdly mentally ill stalking with light, including in those courts, including at those facilities, including at the very police department of the Ontario Police. Their mental illness is filled in my evidence of the video evidence of the entity stalking with light inside of the headquarters of the Ontario Police Department. They are absurdly mentally ill, engaging in what is targeting American citizens, with the evidence of what is stalking under that fake sun and with engineer light, and then also at the same time abusing their government positions, which are held by the mentally ill, demon-possessed, that are targeting and maintaining a surveillance system, and then engaging in what is framing American citizens for that which they're not guilty of, surrounding them with false and malicious accusations that are designed to result in what is kidnapping them. When you are unlawfully confined pursuant to surveillance, it's kidnapping. And they're doing so in furtherance of murder. This is the American citizen that loses their life in those facilities where they're being also psychologically tortured and gang stalked. Gang stalking is a term of art. You're gang stalking in a specific environment, which is what is maintained inside of OVITT Family Community Library. If you're interested in what Arrowhead Regional Medical Center is maintaining inside of its facility, if you're interested in what the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department is maintaining inside of its facility, if you're interested in what the Ontario Police Department is maintaining inside of its facility, the fake sun that's rising and setting, maintaining engineer light inside, stalking with light, all manner of impossible engineered light placement is what is impossible light activity as you're comparing it to the natural environment. It's impossible, it's relevant, and it's there, and it's also probative. It's direct admission to surveillance. Nobody has to say a word in that specific environment. They're engaged in surveillance, and they are gang stalking in these facilities, psychologically torturing, they are murdering, sexually violating, while they are abusing government positions. And the entity tried to do this against me and then thought that it doesn't matter about the fact that I'm documenting, they're just going to kidnap and defame me, and that's going to speak louder than actual law and facts. That's the entity that's going to prison, okay? That's what the Ontario Police Department committed by flying over the top of my head at 7:35 a.m. the moment that I took my head from underneath my blankets after capturing what are screenshots of gang violence, and then the entity engages in more gang violence. A threat to American society, a threat to American citizens. The domestic enemies themselves are the gang stalkers, and that includes both the government and the government that's exposed as acting vicariously. 8 VMW 289, a domestic enemy targeting American citizens in furtherance of murder as a population. And they have confidence as a gang of cowards. They have confidence because of pure numerosity. The entity is going to be overwhelmed and outpowered by the federal law and by the creation of policies and laws together that are going to reach local, state, and federal in order to target terrorists that are a threat to this country. And it's going to start with deportation. That is the number one. And I want to be clear, Iglesia Profetica Apostolica at 115 North Fern Avenue, sharing in what is terrorizing me under the fake sun. I'm surrounding them with evidence as those that are likely, not only, but all those that are subject to deportation. They're being deported by being gang stalked, by my being gang stalked at 537 North Euclid Avenue. They're being deported. They're being gang stalked by, I'm being gang stalked, and they're being deported based on my being targeted by this agency and this population under the fake sun. That's over me while I'm in their presence at 11, 12 o'clock in the afternoon when they hold a fake church service unto El Diablo, the devil that they worship in Spanish, okay? The entity's engaging in this under the fake sun, and it doesn't matter what language you speak. You're going right back to whatever country you came from, and ICE is going to do the deed. They're going to handle that. These are the entity that's engaging in that with the Ontario Police. They're having their own co-defendants deported, and everybody of that agency that's not a natural-born citizen, guess what? They're being deported. The entity that's engaged in gang stalking with the population on the roads and the highways, I don't have to get every single last one of these demons' license plates. They're being deported. ICE is going to comb through the population, and they're being deported. As clearly as I am giving evidence which is relevant for the President of the United States to use this evidence to show you that the entire state is targeting while the City of Ontario is maintaining gang stalking. The ICE, the President of the United States, the federal branch can use this evidence to deport the population in California. But that's how relevant my evidence is with regard to showing the specific environment. And why can the president and ICE refer to this documentation of the P.O.C.? Why is it doing a public service for the government, the federal government that wants to eradicate terrorism in this country and in the state of California? Because of the environment where the mentally ill who are practicing gang violence and furtherance of murder, that is terrorism. They've shown themselves to be engaging in it in the specific environment. That is where Mr. Trump is under what is the fake sun in Washington, D.C. You are aware of the fact that the Ontario Police Department is conspiring my murder and engaging in gang violence while I'm capturing it on video, the time of day, the direction that I'm facing, the ecological address, all the science that you can include in order to further analyze my evidence, which is scientifically relevant with regard to the ongoing terrorism and harassment and clear targeting that I'm capturing in video after video, podcast after podcast, image after image, where it's shared by a population of domestic terrorists in this country. And that entire population, it's not just Ontario, because of the exclusivity of that environment, that's speaking to, that blows the whistle on the whole state. That's what you need to understand. And they're going to be deported. This is what the demon-possessed are engaging in, and it's because they're mentally ill. Their mental illness is a direct preclusion to the ability to intelligently target someone like myself or anyone else, okay? I'm not just going to toot my own horn. This is not pride. This is the truth. It's a fact. They're doing it under a fake sun. It's the bullseye. And these terrorists are being deported. They're going to prison. Everyone that engaged in kidnapping, and includes domestic terrorist leader like Mike LORENZ and Derek Williams, federal prison. Dominic Choi, federal prison. Michael Moore, federal prison. They're engaging in this pattern of conduct while you're looking at the demons that are supposedly having a sun in the window while I'm on Omnitrans. Look at the Ontario Police Department gang stalking me at 537 North Euclid Avenue. That fake sun sits still while Omnitrans is gang stalking me on the roads and highways, specifically Route 83 at 7:35 a.m. And they do so at that second for a specific reason, with the intent to target me, because they know that I'm documenting them when I'm on those buses. They do so with that entity that bears weapons and uses helicopters to terrorize American citizens and psychologically torture them. License plate 8NDK091, gang stalking at Truth and Love Ministries, and doing so under the fake sun. Stalking with a method of light activity. This is mental illness while they're doing so with that same agency, the Ontario Police, and you're going to deport gang stalkers. 8NDK091 is engaging in the P.O.C. with the population that is on the roads and the highways, and it is serving to deport everyone that is not a natural-born citizen at the nearest venue. For example, 115 North F Street at the Iglesia Apostolica Profetica. It is no real church, neither is the Bethel Congregation United Church of Christ at 536 North Euclid Avenue. I'm documenting the fake sun over the top of my head, which is the bullseye, where the entity that is highly unintelligent and does not have science on its side, which they didn't think about because they murder American citizens before they can tell anyone about it. So the entity has never been scrutinized with any level of common sense and fifth grade science, okay? The entity is engaged in this conduct, and they flew over the top of my head. That's the highest threat posed by the targeting entity for the police to be stalking you in furtherance of psychologically torturing you, using the resources of a police department that you heard engaging in criminal summoning, murdering people, and then claiming that they were rushing to an emergency. No, that's criminal summoning and furtherance of murder. That's what the Ontario Police Department are doing. That's what LAPD is doing, as I break down the average newscast that you're looking at on the news while they're targeting in the state of California. These are demons. The environment is the proof of that to you. Not only that, they know what you're doing in the bathroom. They know exactly when you're in the middle of the street and they hit you with your car while they sound their sirens intentionally in order to avoid liability for it. And it's a murder. Okay? And intent, by the way, is derived from the presence of the specific environment. Why? Because that's criminal surveillance. There are no accidents or oversights or acts of negligence where the entity is engaged in what is a demonic level of precision with regard to keeping American citizens under surveillance. They're also not accidentally engaged in what is imprisoning people that they don't know are actually innocent of the crime. That's how the system is designed to work. To kidnap American citizens that are innocent. That's what this entity tried to do to me. I am not the first one. There are people that have been in prison, in jail, in facilities for 30 years, and they were not mentally ill. It's probably a different story now, okay? They've been subject to what is inhumane. Your body being drugged, your clothes being ripped off of you, you're being imprisoned, kept in facilities. You're being treated as a mental health patient when you are fully aware and in control of all your faculties. That's what the city of Ontario has committed. That's what this entity commits when they kidnap in facilities. That's what Arrowhead Regional Medical Center is engaged in. This is mandating removal of that terrorist agency that's calling itself a medical facility. That's the horror that they inflict on people. This is shared by Kaiser Permanente. This is shared by UNICARE Community Center. This is shared by not only Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, but San Antonio Regional Hospital. This is what they do to people. Well, they kidnap with the gang stalkers of the Ontario Police. That's what they do together. And they're not innocently or ignorantly, that is, engaging in that. They're not making mistakes. They're engaging in targeting. And the level of precision is speaking volumes to you under the fake sun. Look up, people. It's targeting. And you're going to remove medical facilities that are posing a threat and treating people, putting them in real life horror flicks. That's a battery, and that's a systematic means of a battery where people are subject to unthinkable, unfathomable horrors, where they have been targeted. This is what Tracy Banks intended for me, her own daughter. She intended for me to live that out every day. She's going to prison. And so is her sex partner that aided her in targeting me, Jason Isaac Fields. They are actually the ones that are mentally ill, the entity that's engaging in this targeting system. The demons that are stalking you with impossible light activity. The ones that are stalking in planes and helicopters. The demons that are looking to the left and right while they're stalking you in plain view. Those are the mentally ill. That's why they go to that extent to project that which the targeted individual doesn't even suffer from, because they are the actual ones that are mentally depraved. License 8ZKY682 engaging in gang stalking last night and doing so again under the fake sun. They are sharing in that gang violence, and they do so in concert with the Ontario Police Department. They are doing so while the Ontario International Airport is serving to prosecute domestic terrorists like everybody on that Ontario International Board. They're going to be prosecuted. Everybody on that Ontario Executive Team, they're going to be prosecuted. The Ontario so-called president, Alan D. Wapner, he's facing a federal prosecution for repeated acts of terrorism in concert with the Ontario Police, engaging in the conspiracy to commit murder with the population that is stalking in the way in which the people of the state are exhibiting. License plate 8ZKY. Hold on. License plate 8ZKY that's sharing it. Hold on. I have this license plate. Let me get it because I documented this demon last night, and she is gang stalking again today. Again, while the entity is keeping the evidence under surveillance, and this is the entity that is severely mentally ill, and they derive pleasure from locking innocent and perfectly sane American citizens in facilities in order to batter them, put needles in your body, drug you, sexually violate you while they do that in those facilities. That's exactly what they're doing. They're taking advantage of them while they also drug them. 8ZKY682 is sharing in that. Doing so while the entity is flying over the top of my head by helicopter. That's the entity that's sharing in that, and that's federal prison. Okay? That's P.O.C. So let me go ahead and capture more video, because this is the entity that's engaging in this under the fake sun, while a terrorist has been engaged in surveillance, sitting right here next to you with his hand on his cheek like he's bored, engaging in surveillance with the Ontario Police Department. In doing so, 8KZY682 is sharing in that pattern of conduct. These are demons stalking with light, and this is the precision with regard to that targeting system. This fake sun is not only not in where it's supposed to be at 8:28 a.m. where I'm remaining at ARCO, okay, and I put that in air quotes, supposed to be, because it's not the real sun. It's a means of targeting, and the fake sun is in the same position. This is a very poor illusion. While those demons fly over again, Mike LORENZ is being prosecuted as a terrorist who's committed kidnapping with Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, and doing so while they're listening to me make very indicting commentary on the podcast, and they intentionally make this very poor decision, which is going to be used to inform, including the President of the United States, that's going to use ICE to deport the terrorists in the state of California, to deport the gang stalkers that are doing so conspicuously in your face, while the entity keeps a face, and this is exactly what they're doing inside of the OVITT Family Community Library. This is exactly what they're doing when they're gang stalking you with that agency, when they're stalking you with impossible light, and they're engaging in what is maintaining conversation like it's not happening, and they're doing so with regard to science, which is going to have them committed and have them in prison. The entities engage, and it's also going to have them deported. This is P.O.C. It's currently 8:28 a.m. The entities engage in what is this pattern of conduct while I'm reading the license plate of a terrorist that's crossing paths with the Ontario International Airport, and then the demons that are not going anywhere, and this fake sun that doesn't go anywhere remains over me until sunset, aimed through the entry of the OVITT Family Community Library, the kidnappers with that agency using helicopters and a whole department to target. They're engaging in what is repeated kidnappings that are a matter of public information in this investigation, and they're going to prison for it. You're going to deport those of the venues such as the Iglesia Apostolica Profetica at 115 North F Street, where they're engaging what is keeping a fake sun targeting me as those that are granted a privilege, not a right, to be in this country, and that privilege does not include terrorism with the corrupt agency that Mike LORENZ and Derek Williams are the terrorist leaders over. This is P.O.C. This is the basis of federal prison for those that I'm showing you that are sharing in gang violence, posing a threat, enemies to this country, sharing in mental illness that they seek to project on the targeted individuals. Sitting there looking bored while you're stalking in the path as a population is not the evidence of innocence, it's the evidence of malice. This fake sun moves as I move, goes to what is the entry of the OVITT Family Community Library, and then sets there. You're going to take another look, and you're going to assess mental illness accordingly. This is the entity that's acting with that agency, and Mike LORENZ is going to prison. So is Derek Williams. This is P.O.C. All right, I'm capturing video of the entity that's engaging in what is psychopathic conduct. And this demon that you see stalking, this is relevant to what they're actually focused on. The demon-possessed are very obsessed. They want to be as close to me as possible. They want to be right next to me. If they could just sit and be in my face, if they could be all over my body, if they, again, they are sex offenders, they are rapists, they want to be in the bathroom stalking, that's exactly what I'm documenting. And upon my documenting that, these are the demons that are sitting around with their hands on their chin like nothing is happening. That's not persuasive with regard to the P.O.C. These are the mentally ill that are, again, engaging in that pattern of conduct. License plate 8Z69895, stalking while the Ontario Police is crossing path under that fake sun. That's still, again, I'm capturing it at 536 North Euclid Avenue at 11 and 12 in the afternoon, and I'll attach that video. But the entities engaging in this pattern of conduct, you can look as bored as you want. They look like they're focusing on studying the desktop computers that they're staring at, while their mental illness is all over the place. They're walking on the engineer light that's stretching into the depths of the Ontario OVITT Family Community Library at 5 p.m., which is on this same block, where the sun, in other words, the fake sun, as they prosecute themselves and have themselves assessed as mental illness through their own mentally demented pattern of conduct. The fake sun clearly didn't go anywhere, while fake sun is reaching into the depths of a building on the floor, back into the back portion of that building, where it's there in the morning and it's still there in the evening, in the corner, whatever corner of the building that I'm at. And the entities engaging what is keeping that engineered environment, while demons looking bored, engaging in terrorism, are stalking with Mike Lorenz and Derek Williams by helicopter. Not coincidentally, while I'm documenting the demon, that gang stalker whose license plate I'm going to read, because understand, that's federal prison. The entity is not engaged in any distractions, and they're also not helping. This is the absence of any coincidence. License 8ZKY is engaging in the P.O.C. that you're listening to, and the entity flies over again by helicopter under the fake sun, doing so while I'm documenting 8ZKY682 is very much engaged in this morning under the fake sun, stalking with light, stalking with that agency, targeting me and furtherance of murder, keeping my vagina under surveillance, molesting, engaging in sexual assault and battery as a mentally ill population, present, driving in that engineer light with that agency that again is stalking and targeting while they are listening to themselves being prosecuted. These are immigrants that do not want to be in this country. Okay? These are serial killers that are begging to be put in prison where they belong. These are sex offenders that are pleading to be identified as the predators that they are on a publicly available list with regard to the Department of Justice, because that's exactly where gang stalkers are going. Gang stalkers of every government agency, gang stalkers of the population. And the entity that's trying now to limit the ability to track license plates, that's not even going to remain in place. The gang stalkers that are driving school buses, you're going to be identified. The entity that's gang stalking in fake churches, the gang stalkers that are being deported out of this country, you're going to be identified. The gang stalkers that are exhibiting mental illness by stalking with an agency using the absurd means of a helicopter under a fake sun, doing so day and night, flying over the top of my head in the parking lot last night, flying over the top of my head as I go to what is another location, and they're engaged in routinely targeting from place to place, flying over the top of my head while I'm at Tracy Banks' apartment, flying over the top of my head while I'm at my Economy Inn hotel room, flying over the top of my head while I'm at the Ontario Town Square. In fact, flying in circles over me for a prolonged period. I've been documenting this for years. And you have a psychopath that's sitting next to you, stalking in the specific environment, looking bored, and you're supposed to be persuaded. That's the mentally ill. Those are the ones monitoring my vagina. Those are the ones that are going to be committed. Those are the ones that are engaged in kidnapping at Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, deriving pleasure from placing American citizens who are perfectly sane in facilities in order to sexually violate them, in order to poison their bodies, which they make money off of, to sign you up for prescriptions, to create what are positions in what is some sort of prescription plan, some sort of rehabilitation plan, whatever these doctors call themselves. They're kidnapping and they're defaming with the gang stalkers, the terrorists, the people of the state, and the Ontario Police Department. This is how that process starts. And Lisa Rogan's going to federal prison. Okay? You're getting to the kidnappers at the Arrowhead Regional Medical Center. I got more of their names in 2025. They're going to federal prison. The kidnappers that sat in any courtroom defaming my character like there's any relationship at all other than the fact that you kidnapped me with the Ontario Police Department, they're going to federal prison. And sitting outside looking bored while you're gang stalking, they can sit in silence. They are the mentally ill psychopaths flinging light all over the place. You can look as bored as you want while the entity has engineer lights swiping across the walls. You can look as bored as you want. These are the mentally ill psychopaths that are gang stalking in furtherance of murder. They think because they look bored that you're going to be persuaded, oh, well, that they couldn't be guilty because look at their facial expression. That's literally their mindset because they've never been prosecuted before. They murder people before they have a word to get in. Okay? They kidnap people before they can spell out the fact or speak to the fact, which again, the pattern of conduct is so demented, which is reflecting on the demons, not American citizens that are being targeted. It's so demented that it's designed to sound, especially when you have no evidence of it, it's designed to make that person sound like they're imagining things. And that's exactly what the demon-possessed do. Posing like they're bored, and then also combining that with defamation while they're engaged in what is kidnapping you and murdering you before you get to speak one word about it. That's what's going to be committed. That's what's being deported. That's what's going to prison. Okay, that's what's targeting American citizens, and that's the gang violence. That's the face of gang violence in the state of California. And this is evidence that Mr. Trump himself and the Department of Homeland Security can refer to. Come to the city of Ontario, come to California, and you have the jurisdiction, literally the law. And you can look more into it because science backs me up. And also my body of evidence is also unmistakable. So this is a surefire prosecution in court, and it's also that which is reliable by the federal government in order for you to comb through the population and deport the entire gang stalking population of immigrants who are engaged in what is terrorism. And this is gang violence that is serving to prosecute domestic terrorists of a corrupt executive branch. That is Mike Lorenz and Derek Williams. And the gang stalkers that committed kidnapping. The latest, that's September 28, 2025. What do you think that Joseph Velasquez is engaging in? That all he's doing is engaged in gang stalking. That's not just an unlawful search that he committed. Those are gang members. And he thinks that he's able, because he's a gang member, who acts with gang stalkers that look like they're bored while they're all gang stalking together, because they think that because they have no idea how prosecution is going to work, how facts and circumstances work. They think a facial expression is going to be probative evidence and keeping them out of prison. But nonetheless, Joseph Velasquez and Vivanco that are engaged in what is an unlawful search, battery, that I documented on podcast and a video, while they're making false allegations that they know are false in the specific environment, what do you think that they're doing while I'm documenting the entity stalking day and night in helicopters? Okay, that's the common sense level of analysis, but then there is also the direct evidence. I have the proof of exactly what they're doing. They're engaged in the pattern of conduct, much like what is shown when you're stalking day and night, meaning you know exactly where I'm going and you know what I'm doing because you're not coincidentally engaged in that targeting while I happen to be documenting you on my device that you don't have any right under the law to keep under surveillance, where then you engage in what is targeting me again, threatening my life, safety, well-being, and liberty, including while demon-possessed gang stalkers sit next to you, stalking as close as possible, looking as bored as they can possibly look while they're gang stalking you. Okay, the entity is engaging in this P.O.C, and this is the entity that's engaging in what is providing the study for the rest of the country to pay attention to, because this is how terrorists are going to be deported. This is how terrorists are going to prison. This is how terrorists are going to be subject to what is that federal prosecution. Okay, driving up where the fake sun is arriving, 1698551, bus number 3003. This is P.O.C. Getting on the bus again, the bus that is gang stalking, as I'm capturing on video, is the pattern of conduct. Route 83 is engaged in gang stalking as I'm documenting, going to the city of Chino, going to the city of Montclair, going to the city of Upland, and no sun remains in the window. License 1693851 is targeting with that demon that is targeting with the city of Ontario, the Ontario Police Department, and the Ontario International Airport, where they are targeting while the entity keeps a stationary fake sun. That's the entity that's engaging in that. That's the specific environment where you are identifying that targeting. And the entity that engages in more of that, as you document, which Omnitrans is doing right now, I just want to be clear, documenting driving north up Euclid Avenue, speeding and doing so. I took a picture of it. The entity is engaging in all manner of deviating from their published schedule, and they just state, oh, we were late, or we were running behind, or we're speeding by. They're doing so while they're keeping me under surveillance, and that evidence of that is the fake sun. Okay, the entity is engaging in what is keeping the fake sun en route from bus stop to bus stop, from transit center to transit center, whereas I'm sitting stationary and I'm staying at the bus stop, and a gang stalker just gets on the bus where the fake sun remains stationary. It's not remaining in the window of any Omnitrans bus route at all. That's that's the specific environment. And the entity is simultaneously stalking with commercial planes. That's what I just captured right now while they engage in that. And they do it in real time as I recite that iteration of the P.O.C. That's not a coincidence. That's the stalker that engages in what is repeating as they engage in it. They repeat it again. That's also the entity that did so with helicopter activity. This demon that's engaged engaging in that P.O.C. is engaging in that which they are keeping under surveillance in real time. That's the entity that's exhibiting severe mental illness. I just want to be clear on that. That's the entity that's engaging in that as a population, wanting to be as close as possible while they're stalking. Getting on a bus, that bus, by the way, that has a fake sun remaining over me as that bus drives away, contrary to the direct juxtaposition of evidence of a fake sun remaining in alignment to me on the bus, regardless if it's Route 61 going east and west along what is Chiefly Hope Boulevard from Pomona to Fontana, or Route 83 going north and south from the city of Upland to the city of Chino, Montclair. The entity is maintaining that light source on the roads and the highways, which I also documented, which is speaking to what is targeting by that same city of Ontario, by Omnitrans, by a demon that's a mentally ill psychopath wanting to be as close to me. The actual intention, in other words, probative through that specific environment. Meaning it's not traffic, it's surveillance. Meaning you're not waiting for the bus stop. You're not waiting at the bus stop for the bus. It's surveillance. While the entity is doing so with the government. That's how you're looking at what are the true intentions. And the entity that is so idiotic to do so under a fake sun amongst impossible light, which clearly they are just believing you're just going to disregard all that evidence as well. And you're just going to disregard the evidence of the specific environment that defies nature. You're just going to ignore all of that. And you're just going to look at their facial expression. And you're just going to look at the fact that it is a bus and the bus stops at the bus stop. So that's all that there is to that. That's literally what the entity is counting on. This is an entity that's engaging in what is a body of evidence, the provision of a body of evidence is showing and speaking to the targeting that is underway through every facet of society. 9REK968 is stalking with the city of Ontario. That's engaging in the P.O.C. Engaging in what is emptying the dumpster, amplified audible activity under the fake sun and an impossible light activity. The fake sun that has not moved from being over me at what is the bus stop. Remember when I go to ARCO, Balbier, and the gang stalking clerk at what is ARCO, they're hosting the fake sun along E Street. So is Starbucks, where it's in alignment. But I have not walked south to be along in alignment with what is E Street and Euclid. So the entity's keeping the fake sun here, where the entity's stalking, targeting with planes, targeting with impossible light, targeting with helicopter, and targeting through the people of the state that are using the Omnitrans bus as a means of stalking in the path, engaging in what is walking in the engineer light, the gang stalker walking her dogs while the entity flies over my head by helicopter. The entity that's engaging in what is gang stalking, which the serving to remove Polyon while the demon possessed are using dumpster trucks. That's how pathetic the demon possessed are. Okay, this is a mentally ill population that's engaged in gang violence. Okay, that gang violence, which is a threat to the society. License YQUEEE, stalking in the path and doing so while the entity is engaged in what is surveillance at F Street and Euclid. All right, this is P.O.C. It is currently 8:42 a.m. and I'm going to capture. Well, I already did, but I'm going to capture again. I'm going to get up and get a clearer view. Because this fake sun has not moved. You're going to compare this to what the entity is doing, flying over ARCO, flying over the parking lot of the downtown Ontario luxury apartments, plane after plane after plane after plane, not flying over the Chevron. They don't fly north of my person, they fly south of my person, maintaining a beeline, psychopathic pacing using commercial planes, and the entity is concentrating helicopter activity over my head on that side of the F Street and E Street block on Euclid, and the entity is keeping the fake sun not in between ARCO and Chevron, but keeping it in alignment with me where I'm at 537 North Euclid Avenue, which is where Omnitrans is gang stalking by using that bus line, which is relevant positioning audible activity. 9RMP090, which is speaking to Empire Printing and Publishing, the Hermandad, the Iglesia Apostolica Profetica 115 North F Street, the 602A Euclid Avenue venue where the demon possessed are residing in the relevant positioning, gang stalking with the Ontario Police, which is what I captured in screenshots. I captured it on video, but in screenshots I give further analysis of everybody that's engaging in relevant positioning when you're looking at the mass crime committed while the entity is stalking by a helicopter, flying over me in the sky space. This is what's underway at OVITT Family Community Library, where those demons committed kidnapping, and they just committed criminal summoning the other day. License 8DES219. They're committing criminal summoning, stating that somebody told them, nobody walks in the bathroom, nobody comes out of the bathroom stall, nobody is engaged in a conversation either. There certainly isn't any yelling, and even if there was yelling, why are you calling the police? Because when the people of the state are yelling in the bathroom, they're monitoring, and nobody calls the police. Nobody. The entity is engaged in what is lying, that's audible activity by mentally ill psychopaths who are engaged in stalking and things like helicopters, engaging in surveillance in the specific environment, and stating where they are stalking me day and night in helicopters with the Ontario OVITT Family Community Library. These are cowards that like to call the gang stalkers themselves. And what they've done is they've put themselves in federal prison. Mickey, Yesenia, Alexander, John, Myra, the entity that's engaged in what is gang stalking, criminal summoning, Alan, that works with IT, the entities engaged in what is criminal summoning with the Ontario Police, while they're engaged in surveillance in the bathroom. That's why they're making allegations about what didn't happen, which they have to do, because why would you call the gang stalking police that have to act like they have a reason to be there and state, even though yelling isn't it either, but the entities engaged in, well, you have to make that up and state something like, oh, well, you were yelling. That's why they're calling the police, but there was no yelling. There's a reason behind those lies, and it's also relevant to the fact that they're walking out in the parking lot where the entity is targeting me, flying over my head and stalking me in that parking lot. It's directly relevant to that fake moon and that fake sun that's over that venue where I'm being gang stalked by that agency. It's directly relevant to that agency that through those employees that are lying about why they need the police, who are already gang stalking me through them, to be present in my face to communicate a threat, because they're hostile as being exposed as the gang members who keep genitalia under surveillance, who are absurdly mentally ill, stalking an engineer light, walking all over it and through it, and doing so with a bored face. Because you're supposed to be distracted by the fact that they're bored, so they're not gang stalking. Because gang stalking is supposed to look like the most horrifying or exciting thing ever. Whatever these intellectually inferior minions presuppose it's supposed to look like, it looks like the specific environment where Mr. Trump, the head of the FBI, the federal government itself, in whatever state that you're in, you can look at the specific environment where I'm at. You already know what I'm surrounded by, what it is that I'm documenting, because we don't share that environment. And you are able to identify targeting in the way in which, even as I recited and dictated, they repeat it in real time because they're engaged in surveillance, which is evidence that incriminates them. This is their pattern of conduct of psychopathic behavior as well. However, though, that's how you're identifying it. There's no coincidence when you're flying over the top of my head everywhere that I'm going in the city. Moreover, when you're doing it in a scientifically revealing environment, where the feds in Nebraska know that you're targeting, because that couldn't be the sun at all. They can already look into that where they're at a distance. They can look at and maintain video in the same manner, and not even video, but you can use all manner, in other words, of technology to prove, because not only is it not the sun, you're looking at this light source that sits on the roof of the buildings. It's sitting beside the windows. They're engaging in light as though it's shooting like a laser horizontally into buildings. There is no rocket science required here. And like I stated, Mr. Trump and the feds, the Department of Homeland Security, literally, are able to use this evidence to comb through the population and deport the terrorists that are immigrants of the Ontario Police Department, the Ontario Fire Department, the Ontario International Airport, the people of the state. That includes every single household. On the streets, the entire population is exposed to deportation for what is terrorism. And that is through the ignorance of what is stalking under a clearly engineered environment, clearly engineered, where you are learning, this is the bottom line, that surveillance is underway in this environment, where they are maintaining what is engineered light over everything, including at nightfall. Okay, including at nightfall. That's speaking to the illusion, and it's demonic. But this illusion is presented before you so that you don't question with regard to what's supposed to be the natural environment, but it's not at all, and it's not even close to the natural environment, and you're subject to what is gang violence and a whole intricately and corrupt, maintained system that's designed to actually target innocent American citizens, perfectly sane American citizens. And the gang members themselves, they derive pleasure from it, okay? Psychopaths like Mike Lorenz, they're going to prison for the gang stalking that I documented this morning in less than an hour. Flying and stalking in helicopters under the fake sun, that's remaining right over me at the same location where I walk back to this address at remember on Sundays when the entity has the fake sun over the same block at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, when I go to where Mickey is gang stalking at 10 o'clock in the morning, the fake sun is still over that entrance over me in alignment to me. She is stalking me. And she's also summoning what are the co-conspirators of murder when the entity's lying about what's happening. They're doing that with the intent to obstruct justice, and you're going to prison for that as well. This is how everything that they're doing points right back to them, and it's also exposing mental illness that actually exists contrary to the propaganda regarding mental illness and the abuse of laws as they exist that are designed to target perfectly sane American citizens, okay? Perfectly sane and law-abiding citizens, or even those that are they're law-abiding or they have engaged in some sort of blemish, they have some sort of imperfection, but it's still not a basis for the government to target them and frame them, and that's what this entity does. Okay, it's surveillance. 8HUR114. Now the entity is maintaining ongoing built-up of traffic at what is 537 North Euclid Avenue, and the ongoing intent behind that, the ability to recognize that intention, that targeting, which me being the focus and not coincidental, is because the fake sun is over this venue. This is putting what is Balbir out of this country. Balbir is gang stalking. She drives the blue SUV that I'm routinely documenting while the entity is stalking me by helicopter and commercial planes in furtherance of murder, and an ongoing program of psychological torture, which she shares in with all of the gang stalkers that are giving Chevron money. Chevron's making money off of criminal surveillance, and Balbir is subject to deportation for it. And so that is what is relevant with regard to blowing the whistle regarding terrorists that are in this country that may or may not be natural-born citizens, and that is relevant to the probable cause for deportation of upon immigrant status of Balbir, a gang stalker on Euclid Avenue, who is monitoring me while the entity flies over my head, gang stalking at Chevron and gang stalking at what is ARCO. They're simultaneously engaging in that together, and that's what I'm capturing. So the gang stalking, if that's an immigrant inside of Chevron at the same time of year, the entity is going to be prosecuted. You're going to be deported. Okay, so I just want to be clear. You're talking about doing a little bit of your homework about who's, well, actually, you don't even have to. I'm doing my homework with regard to prosecution because I'm getting very detailed with regard to who is in the path in my immediate zone of relevant positioning, but the entire city is engaged in, that is, the state is engaged in targeting. It's a surveillance system. That's not just based on who's next to you. But who is next to you is next to you in the shoes of the whole state. They need someone next to you that's representing the entity. That's the whole purpose of having the fake sun and the engineer light. That's the whole purpose of doing so in the most terrifying ways, such as stalking you in a helicopter from parking lot to venue to bus bench, stalking day and night, using what are the resources of a corrupt police department that's not engaged in surveillance. Mike Lorenz and Derek Williams are going to be prosecuted for the conspiracy to commit murder, maliciously doing so while hiding behind titles such as police chief. There are no such police chiefs at all, and the ongoing targeting by the Ontario Police Department directly proves that, okay? It is currently 8:52 a.m. This is P.O.C. I want to be clear. The entity that is targeting at the OVITT Family Community Library at the Ontario Town Square is doing so while I'm capturing what is the presence of this fake sun that's over me, aimed directly on me, while I am sitting at what is this bus stop, the entity that flew over my head at what is 7:35 a.m. It is 8:52 a.m. This is over an hour later. Like I said, traffic is surveillance in California. They're gang stalking. License 6RYF041. Not only that, they're gang stalking. Remember, this is the position of the fake sun on July 4, 2025, where L. Edwards, A. Casada, and Alex Escobar are gang stalking while the fake sun is in the same position while I'm at Starbucks, which is at the end of this same block. And the fake sun is in the same position. I want to be clear, the sun is not going to be in the same position even an hour later, okay? An hour later, the sun is not in the same position over the same building, meaning a negligible movement from the back of the building to the middle of the roof of that same building. That's not the sun either. The entity is engaging in what is keeping a fake sun where I am positioned on the same street where I'm capturing the fake sunset, both at Bethel Congregation 536 North Euclid Avenue, ARCO and Chevron 506 North Euclid Avenue, even what is downtown Ontario luxury apartments, where the entity is keeping this fake sun and stalking with helicopter, the Route 66 car show, the food festival, where A. Morris and Corporal Robledo are gang stalking. That's federal prison. They're all surrounded with this evidence with regard to a means of criminal summoning. Okay, criminal summoning is that which is underway where the entity is engaged in what is stalking, maintaining criminal surveillance, and furtherance of murder and murder of a specific targeted individual, and you're proving it through the supernatural environment where the sun's not going to be over the same street 10 hours from now. But that is the case when you're engaged in gang stalking, surveillance, which is demonic, which is serving that P.O.C. And that's what I'm capturing images of 8:54 a.m. The fake sun's in the same position that it was, where the entity is targeting on video that I captured at what is 7:35 a.m. Okay, and at 536 North Euclid Avenue on Sunday, I'm capturing images They're gang stalking. I've captured video both in the afternoon and in the evening of the entity gang stalking by the Ontario International Airport. The Ontario International Airport is gang stalking with Mike LORENZ. They are going to be subject to a federal prosecution as conspiring murder, okay? But the entity is going to federal prison with regard to the disbanding of the Ontario Police Department. Remember, Mike LORENZ and Derek Williams and the gang stalkers of that agency, they're the ones that are needed with regard to kidnapping while they're targeting. Julia Gu and Alan D. WAPNER, Ronald Loveridge, and these demons that are engaged in criminal surveillance and furtherance of murder with the people of the state as the city of Ontario, they're engaging in that, but they don't have what is the malice of kidnapping like Mike LORENZ abuses, like Derek Williams abused, okay? So that's relevant to what is targeting the ways in which the entity is abusing its positions while they're committing kidnappings and murder, okay? And facilitating that, and also creating a narrative with regard to a murder that is committed by a corrupt entity that's engaged in criminal surveillance, like the gang which is the gang violence that I'm documenting in the state of California. So again, I want to make sure that this is clear. I started this, and this is the entity that engaged in criminal surveillance with regard to criminal summoning. The entity that uses sirens, that was criminal summoning. The entity is doing so while the fake sun's in the same position, by the way. That's not the sun that they're engaging in sounding their sirens. That's serving a deliberate purpose with regard to specific detailed knowledge. Also, the entity is engaging in gang violence while I am reciting the pattern of conduct regarding what is the entity that is stalking in helicopter, and they engaged in that again while I am reciting damning evidence regarding the people of the state that are subject to federal prison. Stalking in light is pursuant to surveillance, and that surveillance is underway with regard to the conspiracy to commit murder with gang stalking agencies, gang stalking airports, gang stalking fire departments, gang stalking populations that are sharing in gang violence, okay? This terrorism is serving for deportation. It's giving jurisdiction under federal law. Literally, the federal government, the president, the Department of Homeland Security, you can utilize this evidence literally and comb through the population and unleash your ongoing campaign to deport terrorists and criminals, sex offenders, those that are unwelcome in this country with regard to criminal conduct with the terrorists of the Ontario Police Department. You need to understand that the terrorists are not just the immigrants. That's what you also are mindful of. But with regard to that angle, the deportation of every single last immigrant, absolutely. And the terrorists are also going to be prosecuted with regard to their co-defendant, Mike LORENZ and Derek Williams, corrupt agencies, the city of Ontario itself, and it includes removing terrorists such as Paul Leon. All right, the prosecution of domestic enemies is relevant to gang violence by who are the actually mentally ill population, a population of demons who are encouraged, facilitated, and who share in domestic terrorism. The domestic terrorism of the Ontario Police Department, who are the cause, they are the reason for the public corruption and the lawlessness that are threatening American citizens. And that's what it is that I'm exposing. That's what it is that I advocate. That's what I represent while the entity targeted me. And they're going to prison for all the iterations of targeting. It's shared by the gang stalking sheriff. It's shared by the gang stalking courthouse. It's shared by the gang stalking medical facilities who sought to conspire my murder and kidnapping through what is the kidnapping by that agency, clearly stalking and targeting, and then they engage in what is exchanging hands with you through venues such as San Antonio Regional Health Center, San Antonio Regional Medical Center, through what is Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, San Antonio Regional Hospital, which is in Upland, California, Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, which is in Colton, California, and which again, Upland Police, gang stalkers. The people of the state in Upland, California, gang stalkers. Colton, California, Colton Police, gang stalkers. The people of the state in Colton, California, San Bernardino County, gang stalkers. The entities engaging in the pattern of conduct with these medical facilities, with these sheriff's departments, and with the court system, where they're engaged in the system of surveillance targeting you together. They're not writing out one legitimate ticket. They're not engaged in any one legitimate, they don't even have a legitimate authority, jurisdiction under the law because of the existence of surveillance. But even above and beyond that, while they exercise fictitious authority under the law, they're engaged in what is writing out in order for the gang stalker that is the sheriff, the gang stalker, that is the court, to also exercise fictitious authority, while those courts and those sheriffs are also engaged in the pattern of conduct of targeting in the specific environment. Not only that, they're engaging in what is intentionally kidnapping you. They're not accidentally, they're intentionally kidnapping with that gang stalking police department. They're intentionally kidnapping with that sheriff's department and police department. They're intentionally targeting you in that courtroom where they're defaming your character upon kidnapping you with that sheriff and police department and the people of the state. That's how they're engaging in that system together. And the demons that are gang stalking with the Ontario police, they are showing that ongoing conspiracy to commit murder upon criminal defamation and kidnapping. That is shared by Lisa Rogan, presiding over the Rancho Cucamonga Superior Court, and the penalty is federal prison. Federal prison, that courthouse, any gang stalkers, and that's what they are, any terrorists that are immigrants, guess what? Gang stalking judges are being deported. Gang stalking attorneys, the West Valley division of the Public Defender's Office, of the District Attorney's Office, engage in what are routine kidnappings, fictitious prosecutions. And it is very much fictitious. This is going to be recognized under federal law. It's fictitious. You're not going to be given any sort of authority under the law. It's a whole fictitious prosecution in a courtroom where you're gang stalking, engaging in surveillance upon kidnapping by the Ontario Police Department. And then you're engaging in what is entertaining that criminal activity while you're gang stalking as well. Literally what you're speaking of as you're referring to the law, as you're in that courtroom under the fake sun in engineer light with the demon-possessed people of the state who have no legitimacy, no credibility, while you're relying on them to sit at the stand. While they're gang stalking, this is that whole corrupt system. You're going to prison, and you're also going to be subject to deportation. When I say comb through the whole population, Mr. Trump, in Department of Homeland Security, that's exactly what I mean. There is no level of professionalism or no level of status with regard to being an attorney, a public defender, a judge that is speaking to what is removal from deportation for terrorism. This is how you are targeting the terrorists that just provided evidence against that entire entity by stalking again on another day. As I'm also, not coincidentally, but pursuant to what is, I'm maintaining an ongoing public investigation of what is gang stalkers that are sharing in that pattern of conduct in a specific environment, okay? Waiting at the bus stop under the fake sun is an obsessed stalker maintaining surveillance by that state. The same bus stop where they're flying over the top of my head. This is common sense, and it's also science. Okay, the gang stalker, Lisa Rogan, is at the same level as this demon gang stalking at the bus stop. They only want you to believe that they're on two different levels, and they're not. Okay, if Lisa Rogan were someone that was granted privilege to be here, if Shannon Faherty were someone that were granted privilege to be in this country, if Kara Hudson were someone that were granted privilege to be in this country, while gang stalking judges, guess what? Regardless of this domestic terrorist Gavin Newsom putting Shannon Faherty in a position to engage in terrorism as an official judge, she's being deported. Were that the case, there is no way that you are under any circumstances protected. You're removing all of these illusions, all of those veils, and they're being deported. They're being placed in prison. They're going to be prosecuted as the terrorists that they are. P.O.C. Okay? This is, again, the entity that's targeting under the fake sun, bus number 1325, impossible light activity while the terrorist operating the bus is engaging what is gang stalking. The Ontario Police Department is monitoring through this criminal surveillance systematically underway by the Omnitrans bus route, where again, the fake sun sits idle where that bus takes off, keeping me under surveillance while I'm on that bus, keeping me under surveillance while I'm not on the bus. And a demon gets on and they're making money. That's the entity that's gang stalking. Again, Omnitrans, a fully exposed corrupt business. License plate 1370396, bus number 1325 at 9:02 a.m. All right, the entity's engaging in that P.O.C. and the fake sun's not going anywhere, okay? This is the entity that's engaging in that. You're not forgetting what Kara Hudson committed, and it was kidnapping upon criminal defamation with the Ontario Police Department. You're not forgetting what, like I stated, Shannon Faherty committed. She committed kidnapping, and she thought that you would never associate her with that because she sits on a bench. But she's engaged in kidnapping as an entity, maliciously so. In the sophisticated manner, I put that in air quotes, of gang stalking, targeting, pursuant to criminal surveillance at the Rancho Cucamonga Superior Court, pursuant to kidnapping with the Ontario Police, and guess what the penalty is? It's federal prison. And it's the same with regard to Lisa Rogan. It's the same with regard to every terrorist that is in the courts, that are a part of the Sheriff's Department and the Police Department. They're going to be the domestic terrorists that are leading terrorism, not different from what Osama bin Laden represents to the United States, a terrorist leader. They're terrorist leaders as CEOs of companies that are gang stalking American citizens. They're terrorist leaders that are police chiefs that are gang stalking American citizens. They're terrorist leaders as president of airport authorities while they're gang stalking American citizens. They're terrorist leaders while they're Ontario, they place themselves and create positions to make money as terrorist leaders, calling themselves an Ontario Airport Board and Ontario Executive Team. They're terrorists. They're going to be prosecuted, the entirety of that board. And the federal government is going to comb through any terrorists that are not natural-born citizens deportation. You're going to comb through the whole population. Okay? The entities engaged in this, and this is relevant to the video evidence that you listen to, and it's going on the internet, and you can juxtapose that with this fake sun. Do not forget, Bethel congregation in the middle of the afternoon, 11 o'clock in the morning, I walk back to this venue because the entity's keeping the fake sun over me. But moreover, it's over me at the same address as I return at 11, 12 o'clock in the morning. That's 5 hours, 4 to 5 hours later. Where is the sun in Florida when that is the case? Is the entity suggesting? Again, a mentally ill one would be suggesting that. But it is under no circumstances any sort of intelligent proposition that the sun is remaining over Bethel congregation, over one person that documents that phenomenon, and also it's in Florida at any point of the day, which is 3 hours ahead of us. So the fake sun that's remaining over me and not remaining in the window of Omnitrans, by the way, that drives off, is engaged in what is having the sun 3 hours ahead of us. 11 o'clock in Florida right now, while it's hovering over Bethel congregation, where the entity is targeting me by helicopters and commercial planes, and while they're listening to the damning and indicting ongoing evidence that's being documented, they repeat it because they are mentally ill, and they also engage in kidnapping American citizens and putting them through their corrupt system of targeting in mental facilities, in prisons, in jails. They're going to prison for that, and the entity is shutting down medical facilities that are kidnappers, like Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, like San Antonio Regional Hospital, where they engage in deriving pleasure. You're being subject to surveillance on the internet. The entity that engages in kidnapping and falsely depicting your character, they will monitor you with ads that are serving to psychologically torture you, such as ads regarding paranoid schizophrenia. When you're subject to surveillance by an entity that is mentally ill and seeks to falsely depict your character, and unsuccessfully so, with regard to the Erica Spencer v. the United States government, the entity is engaged in what is monitoring you with ads that are defamatory, such as paranoid schizophrenia, which I want to be clear, this is nothing remotely similar to what paranoid schizophrenia appears as. You're not imagining the fake sun. You're not imagining being targeted from place to place by helicopter. You're not imagining the impossible light that's flying all over the place. So pray tell, what are these demons talking about? They don't even have an actual point in their alternate universe where they control the narrative, make up facts, and nobody says a word because the targeted individual has been muzzled. They don't even have facts that are supporting their criminal defamation. But I'm going to prosecute for this unintelligent iteration of the P.O.C. You're going to prison for it. I hope you have fun doing those donuts in the commercial planes, because you're going to mental asylums for it. You're going to prison, and you're going to be committed. You're going to prison for stalking in helicopters. You're going to produce to me in your federal prosecution your name, because you're going to prison. You're going to report the activity regarding the heliport where the entity is engaged in what is targeting me using those helicopters, and Mike LORENZ is prosecuted by all of it with regard to the pattern of conduct by that agency. I hope that you're having fun, because you're going to prison. And the gang stalkers aiding in that surveillance, which is necessarily including the corrupt terrorism by Mike LORENZ and Derek Williams, that is serving for what is prison for those gang stalkers sitting on benches, for those gang stalkers calling themselves sheriff deputies, because they're not. They're kidnapping. And they're engaged in what is monitoring you on the internet. No demon that's out here flinging light outside, bat poo crazy. There are a bunch of gargoyles that are stalking in a whole fake environment can defame me. You can't hurt my feelings, okay? These are demons they cannot even deal with reality. They're not even living amongst reality. They're under a whole fake sun that says volumes about you and your mental illness. And you think that you can defame me? This is the entity that engages in stalking with helicopters because they think that it's going to trigger. And triggering with regard to psychological torture is not mental illness. They are not prepared for the ongoing destructive pattern of conduct that is putting each of them in prison. Because that's the system that they rely on. That's what they relied on. Triggering American citizens that are not engaged in what is revealing the fact that they're mentally ill while you're stalking. No stalker has any sort of evidence that the one that they're stalking is mentally ill. If they're mentally ill, why are you stalking them? If they're a threat to you and they're so unstable, why are you stalking them? That's the question. to the United States government that they don't have an answer to. And I'm going to tell you what else they won't have an answer to. They won't have an answer to the ongoing series of methods of targeting and psychological torture that is documented on video and via podcast by the gang members of the Ontario Police Department and the people of the state. And they're going to prison for it, just like Shannon Faye Hurty, just like Lisa Rogan, just like Kara Hudson, to name a few. Just to name a few, they're going to prison. They are mentally ill and short-sighted. These gargoyles don't have any IQ. They've been dumbed down by Satan. They're puppets. And they're going to prison and mental asylums because while they're having a field day stalking in obvious ways in which are showing the P.O.C., that's going against Kara Hudson and the pattern of conduct she's engaging in with knowledge. It's a statewide surveillance system. That's why the fake sun is over the courtroom where she's sitting as a judge. And you're not going to be afforded some unreasonable basis of legitimacy, and we're going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you don't know that you're targeting and you're serving targeting. No, when you're engaged in facilitating it, when you're engaged in criminal defamation, Kara Hudson wasn't accidentally violating the rules of the court and my due process rights by not giving me a hearing, not giving me an opportunity to sit in the courtroom, while she is also keeping me in the ward area with the demons that are gang stalking me of the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, following being kidnapped by the Ontario Police, who are gang stalking in the ways in which I'm showing you day and night. She didn't accidentally engage in that. She did so pursuant to knowledge of the fact that when I open my mouth, she knows that there's no basis for me to even be in that uniform in that court subject to kidnapping. That's why she did it, and she's going to prison. She's going to prison. Misha Moss, who is not a public defender, working for the Los Angeles branch of the Public Defender's Office, you're going to prison, sweetie. You're going to federal prison. Targeting me with Kara Hudson, maintaining no court hearings, just coming out and telling me, oh, well, you know, we're going to have a continuance, and I never get a hearing, and these kidnappers are just taking me back and forth to the ranch. I hope you had fun, because you're going to prison, okay? You're going to federal prison. These demons can't control themselves, but they forget about Kara Hudson. When they're flying over my head by helicopter, they forget about Misha Moss. Okay, a gang stalking attorney, that's an oxymoron. That's with regard to being dealt with by federal prison and permanent loss of licensure. You will never practice law in any jurisdiction in this country for terrorism. They forget about Shannon Faye Hurty when they're engaging. They forget all about them because they're psychopaths. They're psychopaths. They forget about that, and it's directly relevant to a pattern of conduct that you're not coincidentally nor ignorantly, nor will you engage in it in any manner and avoid criminal liability for it. This is what they also don't understand. It's analogous to strict liability. You're facilitating terrorism of a government, of an American citizen, and their life is on the line. If you think that stating that you didn't know, or that it was an accident, or that you didn't mean to as a defense, you belong with that federal case that you're getting, because it's not. The government is targeting through the population, through the sheriff, through the court, through the police. And if you think, and that's these demons that are delusional, they do think, they're gargoyles they're light slinging gargoyles. License 8VVW071, okay? They're light slinging gargoyles. They are totally, absurdly out of their minds, stalking in commercial planes and helicopters. That's what American Airlines is actually obsessed with. Sacrificing American citizens, and you're going to prison for it. And they forget about the gang stalkers that are sitting at the other levels that are part of this same P.O.C. But that's where I come in, because I'm making sure everybody's mindful about everybody that's serving the penalties for this system, because this is how they target American citizens that can't even fathom one angle of the suffering that they're engaged in just in the bathroom when they're keeping your vagina under surveillance. They can't even cope with that. But the whole gang of gargoyles are going to prison together. They're going to build facilities to put these gang members in that are filled with demonic spirits. The Nephilim are going to be put in facilities that are designed to deal with their mental illness, which is born of demon possession. They're going to have facilities designed for them to be present because they're mentally ill. These are the demon possessed. They're going to have specifically designed facilities for them. Facilities where terrorists like Mike Lorenz belong, okay? This is a gargoyle. This is a mentally ill psychopath, a light-slinging psychopath who has a pattern of conduct for which there is no defense. I'm going to let you know how this is going to end. Him and the gang stalker, Lisa Rogan, I'm going to let you, they're both going to prison. That's the long and short of it. And this is another day of the entity keeping a fake sun over me. where the entity is engaged, having a field day, crossing path, molesting with impossible light, have a field day. It's a pattern of conduct that is mentally ill, that is bearing no reflection on the targeted individual, that is proving what is, by the way, a level of genius, not mental illness. The entity is absolutely delusional, and they don't even have the facts to support what is defined as paranoid schizophrenia when you are documenting the evidence of what you are alleging. There's no paranoia there. This is an entity that is, they've gone too far, and there is no going back. And so what are they doing? Because they never had a strategy, so they're just doing more of the same. And more targeting is speaking to more evidence proving that you're targeting. And targeting and furtherance of murder committed by a government equals federal prison. Gang stalking police officers equals federal prison plus mental examinations. Gang stalking mayors are unfit for office, and Paul Leon is subject to a federal prosecution, by the way. That mayor in particular is subject to a federal prosecution based on the city of Ontario repeatedly kidnapping. I just want to point that out. The entity is engaging in what is gang stalking airports, gang stalking pilots equals federal prison plus mental examinations. The removal of that airport. The disbanding of that kidnapping terrorist agency masquerading as a police department. They are the cause for the public corruption and for the lawlessness, for the sexual violence that they encourage, facilitate, and share in. It's not a coincidence while you're monitoring my vagina, you're stalking in the bathroom. You're monitoring, and you know that you're being documented, even though there's no physical evidence for you to know that. But I know, and you know the pattern of conduct, that these demons know that they're being documented. That's why when I walk outside of the doors, the entity is stalking me by helicopter, flying over the top of my head and flying in circles at that entry. That's how you know that they know that they're being documented. It's also not a coincidence when you're flying over the top of my head when I go to the back parking lot of that same venue where you're monitoring my vagina in the bathroom of that venue. You also know that they're being documented absent any physical evidence of it, which is why they make false allegations, which are malicious with the intent to kidnap. You're going to prison. All this stuff that they're doing, you're going to prison. You're going from stacking books to the library, gang stalking, calling the police like a little punk that you are, to prison. That's where you're going. I want you to understand that, Mickey. I want you to understand that, Alexander. You're going to be pacing in a federal cell. That's where you're going. That's where this is headed. There is no strategy here, and all roads lead to prison for you. While your co-defendants are out here on the roads and the highways proving what you're doing all day long on the job, you're going to prison. You've targeted the wrong person that has the skill set to put you where you belong. And it involves prison with routine mental examinations. That's how you know that they're being documented. You know what they know based on the specific environment. You're engaged in surveillance under a fake sun that's rising and setting at the same address. The fake sun that's rising and setting at the same address is not the natural environment where in Naples, Florida, there is a sun anywhere in that city, in that state. That is not over the entrance of the OVITT Family Community Library. This is common sense. The federal government, the president, has full jurisdiction to comb through the population. You can deport as many as you want, Mr. Trump. You can deport every single last one of them. And I want to be clear, you do not do so. I'm not going to, but this is the law. You're not going to treat differently under the law. The terrorists are a part of the Ontario Police Department. The terrorists make up the Ontario International Airport and that airport board and that Ontario executive team. The terrorists make up the Ontario Fire Department, in addition to the entire population. So you're understanding the immigrants that are engaged in terrorism make up this corrupt government that is also being prosecuted. So that is giving you the ability to deport, comb through that population and deport every single last one of them, as we are subject to equal treatment under the law. That includes those penalties for terrorism. All right, ongoing gang violence, stalking me, keeping me surrounded. This is what you're recognizing under the fake sun as I then walk again today. Remember, pay attention to the audio documentation, yes, but the evidence, the ongoing documentation where I'm going to ARCO, the Chevron, this intersection where the entity hosts what is light. This is what West Coast Arborists represent. This is what Leonida Builders Incorporated represent. This is what the entity that's maintaining light activity outside of Starbucks, Ryder, all the demons that are parking large trucks outside to go get their coffee while they're stalking with light in the path. This is the means of hosting at the intersection where I'm at, stalking in the path of light, which is what they're all doing under a fake sun that remains over me, okay? I didn't go to this intersection early this morning like I'm typically doing. Look back in the past several weeks, day in and day out, documenting very diligently, we'll put it that way, light slinging gargoyles who are mentally sick and delusional. Mike LORENZ is going to federal prison with the evidence of gang violence that he is engaged in and is facilitating this lawlessness, this ongoing threat, while I am being surrounded. And surrounding is recognizing that environment that it's following. It's not the natural environment. That's why it wasn't already at the intersection at a distance away from me. Not piercing over Bethel congregation, not molesting my face while I'm sitting at the bus stop. And it moves as I documented, as I moved after 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, I believe, from that bus stop at 537 North Euclid Avenue. The fake sun was never over where Balbir would like to claim that she's not a demon, a gang stalking immigrant, branded a privilege that she's been abusing in furtherance of murdering American citizens with whom she has some false sense of security because she gang stalks with the police. No, those police will put you out of this country and prison because you're going to serve your prison sentence first for stalking with gang stalking police, which is how American citizens are murdered, and then you'll be deported. You're going to do your time and then you're getting kicked out. The entity engages in this pattern of conduct, and the fake sun follows at a later hour to this intersection, which is the pattern of the inconsistency of that environment. That's how you're recognizing the fact that I'm subject to gang violence. I'm being surrounded. A demon behind stalking, engineer light flat on the asphalt in the parking lot of Chevron. A demon right there stalking in the path, a demon stalking on the opposite side of that building on both sides of me surrounding, and they're stalking with impossible light drag. I captured this in images. This is how you're recognizing and getting beyond the veil, seeing how, first of all, demons, second of all, gang stalkers, third of all, co-conspirators with the state are engaged in targeting, okay? And they're doing so in that environment that is remarkably unintelligent, and that makes it very obvious to prosecute. This is the terrorism subject to by Chevron, okay? This is the pattern of conduct that they're engaged in while I'm across the street and the entity's terrorizing me with helicopter activity because I'm enforcing my rights and documenting terrorists that I'm going to prosecute in a federal tribunal by name. This is ongoing terrorism by the population that is underway following me to Chevron, and that's how you're going to prosecute corrupt businesses, establishments as stalking American citizens. Because that crime scene, that demonic environment, it follows them. That's what I've shown you on OmniTrends. The fake sun is following. That's not the natural environment. And you can sit still in Arkansas and hold your camera up, do a Facebook Live, and we can do at the same time. And remember, we're 3 hours ahead while I'm showing you on OmniTrends and while I'm showing you at the bus stop what is not the same. We're not looking at the same object. We're not looking at the object that's hovering over the bus stop while you're in Arkansas looking at what is over the basketball gymnasium high school while you are standing outside surveying the environment, assessing the truth of what it is that I'm telling you. Okay? And not only are you readily able to identify it with your own naked eye, not requiring a degree in rocket science, as you look into an ecological address, time of day, duration of time, the impossible light activity coexisting with this fake sun evidence, the ongoing maintenance of that impossible light activity at nightfall in the absence of the fake sun, the ongoing not only the direction I'm facing, but the ecological latitude and longitude, these aspects into getting into the scientific evidence, okay? That's what I leave to professionals. That's what I leave to with regard to exposing mental illness. I leave that to the professionals. I have pointed it out to you. I don't need a medical degree to point that out. Anyone can see. Okay, light flinging gargoyles, they're mentally ill and they're psychopaths who are conspiring a massive amount of what is gang violence with regard to the government acting with the population, and they share a condition that is invisible, but it is manifested before your eyes while they engage in the P.O.C, the gang stalkers. Okay, and they're doing so in that environment, and so this is where the entities engage in that. And license plate SPID3R Utah. Gang stalking, doing so, all of that entity, stalking with planes, stalking with helicopters, stalking with light, stalking under a fake sun that remains over me for the convenience of the mentally ill who are engaging in shared gang violence, which is putting demons like Mike LORENZ and Derek Williams and every kidnapper of that corrupt agency, the kidnappers, the mentally ill San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, removing terrorists in position like Shannon Dykes, removing terrorists like Lisa Rogan, unfit to be in the practice of law, and also subject to prison. It's not different because that demon wears a robe. It's more vital that there is a statement made in this country that no matter who you think you are a terrorist and you are equally a threat and you will be thrown in prison like any other terrorist. And that's what Lisa Rogan is getting. 7TGF122, 9SUJ598, 5UCR830, 9FKV760, 8SWH584, 8KRL219, Coming into the parking lot with impossible light, gang stalking with the demons in real time while I'm documenting their license plates. This is the mental illness that's putting demons like Lisa Rogan in prison. 9FXP 807. That's the gang violence, the mental illness that incriminates everybody else. They're fools. 9UYM 518. License 9GXZ 646. 7RYN 683. 7TLD 884. P.O.C. And it's 9:52 a.m. The sun is not over the Ontario Town Square, where I'm documenting on an ongoing basis Ronald Leverage stalking me using an entire airport, the corrupt business practices of an airport to target me. And the entity is engaged in what is documentation of an inconsistent environment where that targeting is shown very clearly and vividly. Speaking to the malice of a psychopath that's interested in keeping a woman's vagina under surveillance and then falsely depicting her character when she has the audacity to accuse you of what you're doing. As a whole sick population of gargoyles, slinging light all over the place, out of their minds. License 8UMH340, and then these demons have the nerve. You can't defame anybody. You're going to be silent. You're going to be committed, okay? You are highly unstable, and it's a fact. I don't have to go around making up anything like the gang members do. I don't have to make up anything. You will never defame another American citizen like this, and this is absurd. This is outrageous. They are unstable creatures, having the audacity to defame other American citizens when you can't even function in reality. The sex offender on video gang stalking with the Ontario police, the overweight male systematically monitoring my vagina, engaging in the conspiracy to commit murder. His license plate is 5NKW142. He is waddling toward the Ontario and OVITT Family Community Library right now. I am routinely documenting him stalking, exhibiting mental illness in the environment where you see him right now walking to the library. That same library, he's sitting inside of it at sunset where this fake sun is still in alignment to my face like it is right now after 5:30 p.m. His license plate 5NKW142, and I want to be clear, that's federal prison where he should be waddling, where he's engaged in what is conspiracy to commit murder, terrorizing an American citizen while he keeps her vagina under surveillance. And then the gang stalkers of Mike Lorenz and Derek Williams, Ontario Police Department, add in helicopter activity to threaten and intimidate while they're being documented. So it's not intimidation. And it's certainly not anybody's paranoid schizophrenic episode. They're delusional. They're going to prison. 9NDA126. That sort of delusional conduct equals federal prison plus mental examinations by those that actually suffer mental illness. Okay, that third party is gang stalking with the Ontario police on video. You'll see that mental illness. He's just chit-chatting in the background. Oh yeah, hey, like nothing's happening. Okay, the entity that's engaging that's the same evidence where you are understanding what is actual mental illness. We've been given and fed a lot of propaganda in the same way with regard to what's actually happening when law enforcement is murdering people, and then they're claiming that it's an unfortunate mistake or accident that they're also not going to be held accountable for because they were going toward an emergency. They were doing their job. The entity is engaging in what is crashing, murdering people with commercial planes, and then holding congressional hearings about what possibly went wrong because this accident, which nobody is going to be criminally liable for, is something that is unfortunate, and we need answers for it, and you're not getting the real answers. They're engaged in murdering people. This is the surveillance system, and they know exactly where the helicopters are. They know what's going on with your vagina, your genitalia inside of the bathroom. They know when a helicopter's in the sky space. They're not malfunctions. They're murders by demons that are killing people pursuant to a very detailed and diligent surveillance system. Okay, the entity is engaged in this P.O.C. and you can prove it because the fake sun where the helicopter crashed into the commercial plane, and I want to say it was Delta Airlines. That's an insignificant detail, however, because this is what every airline is engaging in. But if I recollect correctly, I believe it was Delta Airlines that's crashing into this military helicopter. They're doing so in that state where the entity is maintaining the specific environment. That wasn't an accident, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? It's not an accident. The entity is engaging in murder, and they're doing it right in front of your face in the same way that the Ontario police are engaged in surveillance. And then they also are thinking, I hope they're not still thinking that, but they're delusional. They're psychopaths. That's why they're engaged in psychopathic pacing in helicopters. They're maniacal. That's why they can't control themselves with regard to accumulating evidence that you're targeting, thus no mental illness by a targeted individual. But they may be very well thinking that they're going to try to stand on evidence of what is criminal defamation in substance. when there is no, first of all, the mental illness that you would assert while you are suffering from mental illness, by the way, is not defined by what the target individual has done, which is maintain an organized body of evidence speaking to what it's targeting on its face and in substance. That is, not only are you targeting from parking lot to entrance to bus stop, et cetera, but you're also targeting in what is in substance the specific environment. And it's relevant that they're demons, that they're maliciously targeting, and they thought that they could defame you, target you, and then write you off as being crazy and blame you for your own demise, your own kidnapping, claiming you're crazy, put you in a facility, and then take your life, murder, claim you killed yourself in that facility. Okay? Mike Lorenz and Derek Williams are going to prison. That's how this is going to end, okay? 8TJA082 and their co-defendant, this is a mentally ill psychopath who was engaging in that behavior, sitting as though with his hand on his chin, bored at the bus stop while you're gang stalking with the police, engaging in all manner of horrifying terror while you want to look bored, and that's supposed to be legally relevant to your being engaged in terrorism. You're going to prison like anybody else engaging in what is holding a gun to the target individual's head, okay? This is the entity that's engaging in that they're delusional, amongst what is also psychopathic disorders, okay? 5NKW142, you'll witness that mental illness on video where he's stalking with the Ontario Police Department, and another demon where they're pacing an engineer light and they take opportunity to just sit there and chit-chat, okay? Just chit-chatting, which is relevant positioning, audible noise, while they are failing at maintaining any sort of persuasive, but that's the point of what the demons, they've long lost that, okay? These are the same demons that are engaging in what is, stalking with impossible light activity. 7KPA406, 13443C4. These are demons that are gang stalking, maintaining a means of criminal presence in the path, stalking with their light activity. That's OVITT Family Community Library in the parking lot. And the demons that are engaged in what is some remote control means of surveillance right here in the parking lot while the fake sun is moved to where I'm located. This is the entity that's engaging in, that's a drone and what I'm referring to. And you'll see the fake sun right here over me. It's no longer over the bus stop where it sat there stationary. It's also no longer over Chevron, but I am looking at what is within eyeshot where the entity flew over my head by helicopter last night, and where this same venue at 5:30 p.m. this fake sun is still here in alignment to my face while you see it beaming through the front door of the same library where demons are using drones. Gang stalking. License 7KPA406. License 6UAT275. All right, this is ongoing surveillance, comprehensive surveillance, layers of surveillance that the population of demons share, and this is gang violence by the mentally ill. 9UHL670, and the mentally ill shall never again falsely depict the character of a targeted individual with regard to what is gang stalking them. It is directly rebutting the evidence of mental illness. And in fact, it is legally irrelevant when you are targeting. This is how unprepared, this is how ignorant this corrupt government is. And you know why they're so ignorant? Because they're accustomed to having gang stalkers like Lisa Rogan facilitate that corruption. They're a part of it. All right, but Lisa Rogan knows the law. And she knows, with regard to legal reasoning, she knows I'm absolutely right. 67075V3. But she intended to have me kidnapped before I could stay to work. She's going to prison for that as well. 8ZIV221, that's criminal obstruction of justice. That's why she committed criminal defamation and kidnapping. Okay, upon denying what is a trial in a fictitious prosecution for a misdemeanor charge that did not actually happen, and where I did not waive that 30-day time limit with regard to having that trial. And she engages in what is criminal defamation on that day instead of giving me a trial and a fake case for me to prosecute her. 9JBT134 instead, I'm prosecuting her for kidnapping. 9CSB480, 9JCD635, and she's kidnapping with the demons that are gang stalking on the roads and the highways. She's going to prison. She's going to federal prison. License plate 9SR, oh, I can't really see that one. I think I read that one. 53863K1 and 9RSR557. City of Ontario is maintaining light activity, just like they are with the gang stalking landscapers, just like they are with the gang stalking municipality employees. These demons are maintaining light activity through holding up road work ahead signs. That's what Griffith a construction company, Leonida built. They dig up the concrete. They're doing it under the fake sign. It's light activity, audible activity. This is public corruption. And it's a criminal expenditure of what are resources in furtherance of criminal conduct. That's Paul Leon, again, being removed from office. Okay? 57812F2. Look at the fake sign over him. Okay, they're monitoring, that's light activity, while the demons were holding a drone in the parking lot, while the entity has the fake sun moving over me, 7HZE617, 48807X3. In this parking lot where they're engaged in what is gang stalking through construction workers who are demons, stalking and monitoring you with audible noise of their construction work, mental illness, okay? They're engaged in what is presence under a fake sun that's still here. You see how he starts? When I get in the path, that's when the demon starts the tractor. We're City of Ontario, mentally ill demons, serving to remove Paul Leon. All right, they start the tractor. They're using a cat tractor. In doing so, this demon starts it the moment that I get in the path. I'll show you. I'm taking a picture. You'll see the fake sun. You'll see the demon wearing City of Ontario gear. You'll see him in operation of his communication device. You'll see the venue of 215 East C Street where the entity is stalking under a fake sun that's still here. Let's count together. 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 hours later, 7.5 hours later, where the entity is not coincidentally stalking with noise in the path. That's the pattern of conduct of demons who stalk in helicopters that incriminates everyone, and it's not coincidental when they're mirroring that pattern of conduct. These are demons that are monitoring my vagina. That's also why such gang violence is serving for federal prison. All right, they're going to federal prison because of the gang violence that is the cause of Mike Lorenz and Derek Williams. The ones that commit kidnapping. The ones that get you into that circumstance where Lisa Rogan can defame you and kidnap you. 6YYH769 and maintain any kind of narrative that they just make up, any sort of harebrained scheme. All right, and the entity did so against somebody that is very well prepared to enforce my rights and prove the facts, because that's what matters, not what the gang members dictate. Because it comes out of a gang member that's wearing a robe on the bench, oh, you think that a judge is superior to the law. You think that judges can just create facts? No, that's what Satan believes, but that's not reality. And Satan that's calling itself a judge under the guise of what is Lisa Rogan's corrupt acts that are a matter of evidence, which is enabling demons like Mike Lorenz, they're facilitating each other. Lisa Rogan's criminal conduct, that court's criminal activity is facilitating the ongoing gang violence by the Ontario police and the people of the state. That's federal prison. You need to understand. This is how you're going to break down that targeting system that's underway in this state. License 9NXM737, 8UJJ158, 7GTX751, 88QW258. 9TOE019. Impossible light while this demon comes out opening the car door. It's not even the sun, nor is that sunlight. 6EWC171. That's mental illness by the entity. The mentally ill are employees of the City of Ontario, removal of Paul Leon. And they're using resources of the City of Ontario, removal of Paul Leon, to engage in criminal surveillance, exhibiting mental illness in doing so, removal of Paul Leon, 8UAZ428, and they're doing so while they keep the evidence of their terrorism under surveillance, removal of Paul Leon, who shares in mental illness. Okay? Gang stalking underway. The fake sun that's over the Ovitt Family Community Library, the same Ontario Civic Center, the fake sun's over me at the Ontario City Hall at 12:51 p.m. And it could not possibly, in a natural environment, even where you're at, pick a state anywhere, in any other state, not even in the same state in Sacramento. The entities engage in that while the City of Ontario, again, and another vehicle associated with the city, is engaging what is intentionally engaging in that. This is the foolish conduct that they engage in. I told you before, they want to be captured stalking with planes and helicopters. They provide a foolish level of evidence. The entities, I want to be clear, this is the pattern of conduct that every gang stalking judge that's on the record, every gang stalking medical professional, those oxymorons that are going to be met with loss of medical licensure and certifications and prison. PG 086, handicap, stalk with impossible light while the entity is maintaining light activity. This is the criminal activity of Paul Leon. He's a criminal. He's not just corrupt. He's not just going to be removed for what is corruption happening on his watch. He's subject to what is a prosecution for criminal activity. This is committed in furtherance of murder. This is while he is aware of and is keeping the evidence under surveillance. This is while an American citizen has specifically identified him, and that criminal activity has enhanced. It has increased. All right, it has heightened. That's a direct threat by the entity that you're documenting, okay? That's a psychopath that's like, oh, she named me, and so now the entity is going to fly over your head for 20 minutes in a helicopter. No, you're going to prison for that. And the evidence of the targeted individual is directly relevant to what is inspiring that criminal act of seeking to obstruct justice, okay? That's relevant to that. This is the entity that is engaging what is 10 o'clock in the morning. And my shadow that's also appearing in the shade behind this demon driving a City of Ontario vehicle, license 1674769, creating what is light activity in the path. And the guys, I got to deliver something. That's what UPS, FedEx, USPS does. USPS and all of these demons that are gang stalking using their planes. They are demon-possessed employees. This is what Paul Leon represents, a domestic terrorist that's engaged in what is terrorism through the municipality. Okay, and a fake pastor and a gang stalking mayor that's engaged in monitoring my vagina. Okay, it is currently 10:06 a.m. This is P.O.C. stalking under a fake sun that is remaining over me at the bus stop until after 9 a.m. You're going to remind yourself and look at the evidence, because this is how you're always recognizing that pattern of conduct, the aggregate. The fake sun is over this entrance as I'm inside of this parking garage, right across the street, this parking garage that I'm facing. Remember, this is at 7:55, 7:56 in the morning. But I'm remaining at the bus stop where at 7:35, the Ontario Police Department is stalking by helicopter, particularly because they are hostile and rageful because of what I'm documenting, the truth, while they're keeping me under surveillance and not coincidentally flying over my head and stalking me in that terrorizing manner with demons who are mentally ill stalking with light, such as Exhibit A, license plate 37691G3, with the minor child engaging in terrorism with the entity that is gang stalking and doing so with the population that's subject to deportation. The entities engaged in this pattern of conduct where the fake sun is not over the OVITT Family Community Library, not next to it, not in front of it, not beside it, while it's over my head at 537 North Euclid Avenue, where that agency, that is Mike LORENZ and Derek Williams' pattern of conduct as terrorist leaders over a corrupt agency targeting and furtherance of murder with the people of the state whom they require, they need, they rely on to engage in targeting in that environment. The entity is engaged in what is an outright deviation. That's just getting to one. The bigger picture, the entity is keeping the fake sun over my apartment. We are still in daylight savings time. It's still Pacific daylight time, if you will. Same time of year, and even outside of daylight savings time, by the way, it's just 1 hour. You're never going to make up for what's over the top of my head in my apartment at Alvarado Gardens, where LAPD, that is Dominic Choi, Michael Moore. Because you will not, you shall not retire out of a federal prosecution for terrorism, seeking to murder an American citizen and psychologically torture them. There is no reconciling the evidence, and science backs that, of the fake sun being over my head at my apartment at Alvarado Gardens, being over my head in the workplace at Alvarado Gardens, until I get off at 5 p.m. at Alvarado Gardens at 1810 North Alvarado Street. My office didn't move. That fake sun didn't move either. Neither did my apartment, and neither did that fake sun as I went from my apartment to the office, from my office back to my apartment, remaining in my office from 1 after lunch and then leaving at 5. And that fake sun, as I walk around Alvarado Gardens, that fake sun remaining over the top of my head. And so did the demons of the of the Los Angeles Police Department, which is the same entity, the Ontario Police Department. While Alex Escobar is stalking me and kidnapping me under the 7:15 a.m. fake sun, Dominic Choi and Michael Moore, the Los Angeles Police Department, are in an environment that is irreconcilable, which is science prosecuting domestic terrorists in this country pursuant to a corrupt system where they are targeting very specific American citizens whom they know very well are not mentally ill and are not criminals. And they're going to prison for it. They are going to prison, and they are going to be subject to mental examinations. I am still prosecuting Dominic Choi in Ontario, California. I am still exposing Karen Bass in Ontario, California. License 7UUN561, serial stalker. License plate, minor child in the background while conspiring the murder of another one, engaging in sexual violence, 8RYX149. And the license plates are not going to be banned from the ability for the public to research domestic terrorists like LA County is trying to engage in. Don't worry, that's not going to last. It's not going to work. You will be provided what is a means of publicly exposing, and you're doing your research about terrorists in this country and those that are subject to deportation, those that are engaged in terrorism as corrupt government actors, those that have been removed from office. Why? That's a matter of public information. And it shall be, including their license plates. Okay, but that's just one level of documentation why I, as one person, have gone about maintaining my public investigation and identifying in as much detail as possible sex offenders keeping genitalia under surveillance, doing so in concert with gang members such as the Mike LORENZ and Dominic Choi and Paul Leon, Karen Bass, 9RKY544, mentally ill in doing so and sharing in that pattern of conduct. You're gang stalking me on the job, and then you think as a light slinging gargoyle that you're also going to defame my character as though that has anything to do with why I was forced to resign as a property manager, minding my business in Los Angeles at Alvarado Gardens. You're going to prison because the entity is abusing law while they are targeting you with the intent to falsely depict your character by their criminal conduct. That's what Lisa Rogan is engaging in by defaming me, okay? And it's directly rebutting the fact that there's any mental illness when I am gainfully employed and I'm documenting the fact that I'm being targeted on the job. And then you're going back to what Lisa Rogan stated and what she did and the harms that I'm still suffering, precipitating from her corrupt acts and her kidnapping and criminal defamation, aiding psychopaths like Jason Fields and Tracy Banks and Eric Spencer and Tommy Allen Banks and the gang members of the city of Ontario and the Ontario police. She's going to prison, okay? She's going to prison. Demons gang stalking using tractor trailers, keeping a fake son over the library, and Mickey thinks that she's not going to be federally prosecuted. She's delusional. She's delusional in the same way that everybody's going to know that she is a covert homosexual predator, keeping my vagina under surveillance, and then she summons the gang stalkers, making up lies and doing so because she's scared to death because she's actually a coward, and that coward's going to prison. And everybody's going to know why you're there. I don't know how that treatment's going to go. I don't think they're going to like you very well. This is P.O.C. Okay, as upon entry of the library, which you can see with regard to the light source that's over the entrance, that is called being in alignment. It's not the sun. And Florida, anyone in Florida could actually engage in what is testifying in the federal prosecution of the government, because in Florida there will be no sun over you while it's over the entry of the OVITT Family Community Library, as I'm documenting upon my entry today. And this is also where it remains. So in the natural environment, Florida would never see a sun, and the fact that they would have anyone in that state say, oh yeah, the sun, just take a picture of it, you can go and testify, because that's how easy the prosecution is going to be with regard to science, okay, and targeting a specific person who actually diligently documented it, and the entity engaged in what is more targeting evidence with regard to their mental illness also. The mental illness is shared by demons that are stalking with noise. Those are the same employees engaged in criminal summoning, the same employees engaged in stalking with the Ontario Police Department, sitting inside of a venue where they have multiple shadows that's exhibiting mental illness and doing so as a corrupt venue, okay? The entity is going to keep the fake sun just like it did yesterday evening until after 5 p.m. in alignment to me, where they are all stalking. Okay, that's their purpose when they're stalking in and by pacing in and out of a doorway. Very mentally depraved, demented behavior. Okay, they would like to be presented as those that are sane. They would like to present as being well. They are the exact opposite that, and they're of that. Excuse me, and they're also absurdly perverted. All right, the entity engages in this conduct while they're engaged in that pattern of conduct. And you're looking at the video published last night. Those are the employees that are pacing in and out of the administration door. And mental illness is not funny, but justice is going to be enjoyable. We'll put it that way. Putting terrorists where they belong, putting the mentally ill where they belong, as opposed to being free and able to target American citizens in the way that the demon-possessed at the OVITT Family Community Library have. It is currently 10:15 a.m. The entity is going to keep the fake sun at the same venue as I've already documented, and then they're all walking on the engineered light. Remember, they're already in engineered light. They have multiple shadows. Their shadows pace in front and behind them. Repeatedly, that's directly relevant to the mental illness, the bat poo crazy demons that are stalking with light on the inside of a building. Then they're walking on the engineered light on the inside of this venue 6 hours, 7 hours from now, where the sun is not going anywhere, and anyone in the state of Florida, anyone else in the state of California, you live in San Francisco, you live in San Bernardino, California, the sun is not over you while the entity is keeping the fake sun in the direction west, remaining over this building in alignment to me for the duration of the workday, where they're going to be federally prosecuted for criminal summoning, for kidnapping as an entity, for criminal defamation and furtherance of kidnapping, and all of this is in furtherance of death. Their mental illness while they're maliciously engaging in such a targeting system is also relevant and at the forefront of every employee's prosecution. Those that engage in kidnapping on June 16, 2022, they're going to be dealt with accordingly. The criminal conduct that they're engaging in now, that I'm documenting last night, it's informing what happened on June 16, 2022, which I already laid out. You're looking at ongoing corroborating evidence over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, and they're going to prison. American citizens are not going to be targeted in this manner, and the ways in which I show the population is sharing in gang violence with terrorists like Mike LORENZ and Derek Williams and that entire agency, and then remaining free. While the objective is to kidnap Americans, no. They're going to prison, and they're going to be mentally assessed based on actual facts and circumstances that dictate that that's exactly what's necessary for the benefit and the safety of the public. It is currently 10:17 a.m. Pay attention to the images that are captured of the fake sun into the evening, where the fake sun isn't moving. All those demons stalking in the path, including Balbira at the Chevron. This is the same block. It's the same block. The sun's not going anywhere. And that's not the natural environment, in other words. That's the entity that's engaged in very diligently maintained, detailed, and consistent evidence speaking to the pattern of conduct. This is P.O.C. Thank you, Starla.
You're welcome.
Alrighty, that is the defendant, Starla, license 9, Sam Edward Jack 254. She is gang stalking, targeting me in furtherance of murder and psychological torture. She's also a violent sex offender whose family joins in on gang stalking me. Doing so, sitting at the circulation desk, she's giving what are disinfectant wipes, and she's gang stalking with the population that's pacing in and out of the venue under the fake sun. She's doing so while the entity is maintaining surveillance inside, just like is the case while I'm subject to surveillance in the parking lot, where that same agency that is gang stalking using helicopters and with the intent to terrorize and threaten you and threaten your life because you're documenting as well. That's that third party. Just want to be clear, 9SEJ254 Starla, P.O.C. Question, if I'm going to have a meeting today, what times do you guys have available for the, or do you have anything available for the,
I do know we have a half hour at 12:30, and then other than that, we have open this afternoon.
for the whole 2 hours? After 2? Okay, let me make, okay, thank you. Let me make a phone call. Alrighty, this is the P.O.C. I just want to be clear, upon the entity flying over my head last night in the parking lot of this venue, where the entity has the fake sun at the entrance, and at the entrance last night where the entity is stalking by helicopter, that's where the fake moon is at as well. And then as I go to the back parking lot, that fake moon is over the building, moving as I move, and so is the entity that is stalking, following where I go by flying over the top of my head by helicopter, in concert with this demon that is an employee of a state facilitating venue. And as she's engaging in what is sexual assault and battery as an entity, the entity is cooperatively acting with that sex offense. Remember, as this third-party Starla starts her vehicle in order to create what is light activity and audible activity in the engineered environment to add impact, the entity turns off. That's the city of Ontario that's gang stalking outside with tractors and light activity while that fake sun remains over this entry until after 5:30 p.m. That's the city of Ontario that turned off all the lights in that parking lot as well. Okay, that's the entity that's sharing in what is the central aspect with regard to identifying the surveillance system and the intent to violate the person, and more so as you expose it. That's that psychopathic, that's that predatory, that's that maniacal sex offender that is stalking obsessively. Okay, so this is an entity that's engaged in that, and that's the third party who I'm speaking to. This is relevant to psychological torture while the entity is engaged in public corruption, engaging in what is gang stalking you through your coworkers who are around you inside of the venue, who are engaging in what is conspiring your murder while also gang stalking you in a manner that's not supposed to be overtly hostile. You shouldn't. They do so also, however, you can see it when they do things like make unfounded allegations. Who is saying that why would you state that I'm yelling in the bathroom? Well, you know why. Because the entity is engaged in criminal summoning. So you have to come up with something, say that she pulled a knife in the bathroom, and then you're getting, okay, we're here because we were told this, but they're clearly lying. That's where you get through this very thin veil and unpersuasive illusion, looking bored while you're gang stalking with the police, being friendly while you're gang stalking inside of the venue on behalf of the entity, and you are conspiring murder. That's why the entity shares in what is dropping all the lights in that parking lot while this state actor is engaged in what is molestation. It's a sex offense while you're engaged in touching and you are stalking on the job in that specific environment. That's why the totality of the workday is under the fake sun. And when you're doing so as an entity systematically, routinely, repeatedly, pursuant to criminal summoning, kidnapping, it's federal prison. Okay? It's P.O.C. It's 10:26 a.m. All right, license plate 51490H2. 2EK1268. That's an out-of-state license plate. And it is associated with the terrorist that is residing at 602A Euclid Avenue at the intersection of F as in Frank and Euclid, where the entity is on video engaging in surveillance with that facilitating venue under the fake sun, and doing so while the entity is keeping my device under surveillance while documentation is being captured. And then as a documented act, which is life-threatening with regard to retaliating while you're being documented, engaging in surveillance, the entity is engaged in stalking where this third party resides. That is, again, at 602A. That is 602A Euclid Avenue in Ontario, California. License 2EK1268. That is an out-of-state plate. All right, Omnitrans Public Transportation. They're engaged in gang stalking systematically. Chaffee Joint Union High School. They're engaged in gang stalking with minor children. License 7JCL201. License 8 Nancy David Kelly 091. License YQUEEE. So Yolanda, Queen, Uncle, Edward. Omnitrans Bus 1325, license 1370396. License 58273, Edward 4. Seven Uncle Victor Thomas 285. Nine Henry Mary Jerry 380. Eight Zebra Kelly Yolanda 682, engaging in targeting with the Ontario International Airport and the Ontario Police Department via helicopter while that third party is being documented, which is malicious conduct pursuant to what is real-time surveillance and impermissible threat, which is mandating federal prison, by the way. They're gang stalking at Empire Publishing. Empire Publishing is located at third-party facilitating venue 527 North Euclid Avenue. They're documenting gang stalking last night as well. And as that demon is engaged in gang stalking in concert with the government simultaneously is stalking with commercial plane and helicopter while this third party is crossing path under the fake sun. Those are the domestic terrorists that are going to be placed in prisons and in mental asylums, by the way. License 8 Zebra Kelly Yolanda 682. License 7 Zebra Thomas Paul 473. Mary, Apple, George, Apple, Paul, Wendy, Robert. I think that's supposed to be MAGA Power, MAGAPWR. License 9, David, Wendy, Thomas, 668. 7, Kelly, Apple, Charlie, 757. 8 Henry Sam Victor 901. 9 Sam Kelly Edwards 710. 41687 Mary 2. That's Nella Power Solutions, by the way. That's another third-party identifier, the name of the gang stalking company, and the gang stalkers operating that commercial vehicle, an independent basis of prosecution for conspiracy to murder, gang stalking with the state. The license that they are abusing, engaging in criminal surveillance and furtherance of murder, is license 1120771. That is, again, Nella Power Solutions gang stalking at what is Hermandad, adjacent to the 536 North Euclid Avenue, Bethel congregation. License 30703 Charlie 3. License 6 Mary Robert Charlie 896. 41383 Paul 2. 7 Uncle George Uncle 351. 90853 Yolanda 1. 6 Frank Uncle 339. 8 Wendy Mary Larry 127. 49228 Uncle 2. 8 Henry Kelly Larry 474. Larry Kelly 749. That's a handicap on a Hyundai Elantra. 9 Apple Henry Larry 717. 9 Robert Wendy David 305. 231 Kelly David Mary, that's an Oregon plate. 92466 Yolanda 1. 9 Paul Mary Charlie 944, in case I didn't read that one already. 9 Sam Yolanda 321. 8 Jerry Larry 622, in case I didn't read that one already. This is a third-party facilitating venue at Lavish Oak that committed criminal summoning with C. Hazelwood of this targeting agency that Mike Lorenz and Derek Williams are going to be prosecuted for regarding this pattern of conduct committed in furtherance of murdering with the people of the state. This Lavish Oak venue is operated by these third parties that committed criminal summoning. And this license plate of this third party associated with this venue is 9 Sam Frank Apple 395. And the criminal summoning was committed by C. Hazelwood and Owens, documented engaged in gang stalking in conformity to the pattern of conduct by that agency by the state of California. License 7 Yolanda Queen Henry 166. 9 Uncle Samuel 998. 9 Paul Xavier Henry 737. 7 Larry David Thomas 539. 9 Paul Zebra Yolanda 731. 8 Jerry Larry 622. That's a third party that's parked and then they move their vehicle stalking as I go down the street, and it is that detailed and it is that intention, in fact, because the fake sun is moving as I move. That's not a third party that's coincidentally driving away from where they were parked gang stalking under the stationary fake sun at the bus stop to the intersection where Starbucks is gang stalking at 507 North Euclid Avenue and UNICARE Community Health Center at the intersection of F and Edward, ARCO and Chevron at that intersection 434 North Euclid Avenue and 506 North Euclid Avenue. That third party is moving in the same way that that fake sun is moving, stalking as a population and doing so on behalf of the state in furtherance of murder, exhibiting severe mental illness and doing so. That's again the third party that was parked, engaged in surveillance, license 8 Jerry Larry 622, then gang stalking at the intersection. As I arrive at that intersection, that's engaged in surveillance. It's not traffic on the roads and the highways in the specific environment. This demon's license plate is 8 Jerry Larry 622. License 9 Robert Xavier Frank 616. Omnitrans gang stalking, bus number 2502, license 1234706. Omnitrans is a state actor engaging in state surveillance, and they're driving, stalking, crossing path under the fake sun that is not remaining dynamic, moving as that bus moves at the speed limit of that bus, such that I can be on that bus and capture video, consistent video of that fake sun not moving from city to city, transit center to transit center. Contrary to that, which is the evidence of the pattern of conduct, the inconsistency of that specific environment, as you're prosecuting based on the operation of the natural environment where the P.O.C. is underway by malicious psychopaths that are operating a transit line that is omnitrans, that is gang stalking, with knowledge that it is being documented, showing that ongoing intention to commit murder while sharing in that pattern of conduct through a corrupt business. That's a federal RICO case as well. Omnitrans is gang stalking at F Street in Euclid, and that fake sun remains at that intersection while that bus drives away. Okay, it's the exact opposite when I'm aboard Omnitrans. License 5 Zebra Queen Sam 128. License license Sam Paul Edward David Robert Sam. 6 Yolanda 0 Xavier 827. 51571 Wendy 3. This is Transport U.S., a serial stalker, targeting at, again, Chevron in the specific environment, which I'm documenting. Filling up your gas under the fake sun, filling up your gas amongst impossible light, filling up your gas tank while the demon possessor surrounded me at the Chevron, which I documented in front of me, dragging engineer light behind the vehicle while they're driving around the corner, stalking and doing so, while the fake sun is moving over the building as I go from the front to the back of it to document the gang stalking potential immigrant, Balbir, who was subject to deportation under all circumstances. License plate 9 Thomas Igloo Henry 520 at ARCO 434 North Euclid Avenue. That's the gang stalking employee systematically engaged in targeting with the state, engaging what is gang stalking me in concert with that agency, using helicopters to communicate an unlawful threat to your life, safety, and well-being and liberty, especially as you are in the process of documentation in order to protect yourself and your rights. ARCO and Chevron share in that, and these two employees, including Balbir. Balbir's license plate gang stalking at Chevron is license 9 Edward Frank Henry 194. Gang stalking me with the gang stalking demon with license 9 Robert Queen Zebra 462. Gang stalking me just like they are inside of the OVITT Family Community Library under the fake sun and an engineer light. License 8 Thomas Paul Victor 986. Stalking at the gas station like they are stalking in that environment conducive to surveillance and exhibiting shared mental illness. License 9 Sam Wendy Yolanda 107. License 8 Jerry Henry 216. License 5 Nancy Kelly Wendy 142. On video, gang stalking with the Ontario Police Department at this venue where they are monitoring right now under an enduring stationary fake sun, exposing all of them as the Nephilim, as the mentally ill population threatening American citizens engaged in what is domestic terrorism, as exposed enemies of this country and the Constitution, while they're targeting in the way in which I have shown throughout the P.O.C. This third party is inside of the venue engaging in surveillance right now with the gang stalking employees who are state actors and sharing in mental illness with the demons that are pacing in and out of the venue, maintaining what is essentially a musical chairs, pacing in and out of the venue, taking turns gang stalking all day long. 5 Nancy Kelly Wendy 142 on video last night at the entrance where the entity is gang stalking by helicopter. After I'm documenting bathroom monitoring my vagina. Okay, that's what this third party is doing with the people of the state, including Starla, Abigail, that are engaged in, and Alexander, that are engaged in gang stalking inside of this venue. That's again 5 Nancy Kelly Wendy 142 P.O.C. And what you'll see in the images of the Google Drive, you'll see and you can look at the Google Maps, look at a map, because you'll see the short walk that I'm taking from F Street to what is C Street, and you'll see that fake sun above my head as I am moving. I'm not capturing pictures showing that the sun is remaining at a location that is similar to where it's, because the sun is not moving. In other words, this is what is so fascinating about the entity's pattern of conduct. It rapidly moves as I walk down the street. It rapidly moves while I'm in vehicles, but yet it stays stationary over a building for 10 hours. Okay, so also this is when you're getting to what is clear stalking, and so are the people of the state, clearly stalking. And that's all that the demons are doing as a police department, fire department, airport, as businesses. It's mental illness that is no longer closeted. And it's severely, severely threatening to the population. Okay? Engaging in this conduct and then seeking to commit kidnapping, which this venue that is monitoring right now has been engaged in serial efforts to do so while engaging in psychopathic means of surveillance. The entity's fake sun is moving over me, and you can look at the Google Maps to see the short distance that I'm walking, and the sun that's engaged in a clear departure from being over Bethel Congregation or being anywhere in that direction while I walk south down Euclid Avenue to the OVITT Family Community Library, which is off of C Street and Lemon. Okay, and the main street is Euclid. So at 5:30 p.m., it's off of the same Euclid Avenue. And the entrance doors are facing the direction west. There is nothing east, in other words, that has the sun over them, while you're excluding what is the entity that would have the sun in the state of Nevada, where the entity is keeping the fake sun over OVITT Family Community Library, where it's not in alignment with the entrance doors. It's not over the OVITT Family Community Library. It's not over the Bethel congregation. But when I move my person and I am at that venue, then you're looking at what is a clear defiance, incongruent with what was just documented. And if that was the sun, then it's not rapidly moving over your head in the way in which I'm documenting in these pictures. Okay, so this, as I go from building to building, that fake sun goes from building to building. And so do the gang stalkers of the terrorist organization, the Ontario Police Department, using helicopters and police vehicles, which they will be stripped from, while they have abused those positions and those resources in concert with gang stalkers like Paul Leon and the people of the state, without whom that terrorist agency cannot commit kidnappings. Okay, they cannot effectively engage in kidnapping without that entity cooperatively engaging in shared surveillance, shared mental illness, shared demon possession, shared criminal stalking. All right, the entity is engaging in this while license 57812 Frank 2. The city of Ontario is maintaining the orange pickup truck under the fake sun that's moving steadily, swimmingly, as I walk toward the OVITT Family Community Library, where that fake sun is planted over the entrance. Okay, moving very rapidly as I walk down the street, not moving as I remain inside of the building. Proven because it's still in alignment with my person, while I'm sitting at the same computer where demons are engaging what is taking shifts, engaging in surveillance, which is psychopathic. They do the same thing in the bathroom. Okay, they're engaging in that while the fake sun is still here. After 5 p.m., that's 12:26 p.m. right now. That's 5 hours from now. And the fake sun is still here. And the mentally ill are the only ones that would walk around under that fake sun and in that engineer light inside of this building, like they have been, with regard to what is exposing mental illness where it resides, and the entity that's going to be prosecuted for defaming upon kidnapping American citizens, which is what the P.O.C. proves that this entity, this venue, the people of the state have engaged in. All right, the entity is engaged in this P.O.C., and the city of Ontario is maintaining a means of light activity through construction, through the use of the municipality vehicles, through the use of the license plate 1674769 at the entrance with flashing of light, at the front door where the fake sun is present. That's present, by the way, at 10:05 a.m., and it's present at that same front door at 1 p.m. where Tracy Banks is gang stalking with the same city of Ontario using commercial planes, and that fake sun's in the same position it is 10, 11, 3 hours from what I captured today. It's proving when you look back at the evidence that fake sun doesn't move. That fake sun's not in Florida. Okay, that's not the natural environment. What they're looking at in the sky space that's sitting over the same entrance is not the natural environment shared with Florida. It's not even shared with anybody in Sacramento or in Riverside, California, or in Los Angeles, or the demons documented at Alvarado Gardens. Okay, the entity is maintaining an environment detailed, specific to where I'm at. That's why that fake sun doesn't move. That's the prosecution of everybody that's engaged in malicious iterations of the P.O.C., such as criminal summoning, lying, engaging in what is criminal summoning with the gang stalkers that are stalking me with them in the parking lots, at the entrance with helicopters, and you're going to prison. That you're not going anywhere but to prison, including with mental examinations, as you pose a threat to American citizens and yourself. Okay, this is the entity that's inside of the building concentrating that pattern of conduct. All they're doing is engaging in ritualistic pacing, stalking with noise, that is following me with the maintenance of noise and engineering light, following me in the path, including into the bathrooms, which is absurdly and perverted criminal surveillance.
Okay, so you're always mindful of all of the surrounding circumstances pursuant to presence. So you're looking at what is criminal presence in the path, computer station number 3. Criminal presence in the path, computer station number 4. Criminal presence in the path, that's the demon that's gang stalking at number 3 with an employee. They're talking and chit-chatting and engineer light. This is where the entity is maintaining helicopter activity, flying over me, stalking, flying in circles, which is the pattern of conduct,
while I walk out of the venue, while I go to the parking lot where these demons are parked, while they're in engineer light engaging in that P.O.C, and they share in what is exposing their mental illness while they do so. This is the gang violence that they're going to federal prison for, and that same disregard, that same outward demonstration of mental illness, not the demonstration of any innocence or ignorance, that is disturbing conduct, not normal conduct at all. The entity's engaging in this with the gang stalking patrons, okay? While they're anticipating the use of my devices, they're doing so while the entity has engineered light flying about the walls. This is mental illness that the entity is sharing with that population, okay? It is currently, by the way, also 1:16 p.m. This is the venue where the entity is engaged in that P.O.C at nightfall upon exit of the private space where this ongoing surveillance system is also underway. The entity that's engaged in that P.O.C is doing so in a specific environment under a stationary light source amongst the entity that's maintaining helicopter and plane activity, and doing so with the entity that's pacing in and out with the patrons. So I want to make sure that that's clear. The entity is doing so with every employee, including those that are engaging in the demonic pattern of conduct and then making looks as though they are perplexed with their own criminal conduct that's being documented. They're going to be diagnosed with that, okay? The entity's engaged in that. That's relevant to what is a failure to act to effectively criminally defame. That's the effort in that. When you are actually judging yourself with regard to your pattern of conduct, you're going to prosecute them under the fake sun, where they maintain looks of being perplexed, they maintain looks of boredom, they maintain looks of being excited and maintaining conversations while the entity is engaging in what is criminal presence with them. The entity is doing so at 1:16 p.m. under the idle light source that's over the same entrance. They're doing so with regard to their work schedule, where they're maintaining surveillance on the job, and they're engaging in surveillance while the entity is maintaining engineer light, dynamic light that I show you when they're driving under the fake sun. They're in here walking, talking, like you can hear in the background, gang stalking and doing so, while the entity has impossible light all over the walls. Those are the mentally ill that are sharing in gang violence with the terrorist agency, Mike Lorenz, Derek Williams, Ontario Police. Okay, this is P.O.C. This is the entity that's engaging in that with regard to a specific person that they are all targeting together, which is absolutely and absurdly psychopathic. It is as fake as the hair on the top of this demon's head that is gang stalking with the patron sitting at computer station number 4. Okay, it's pathetic, and it's pathetic with regard to the entity that's engaged in that P.O.C. It is currently 1:17 p.m. This demon is also captured gang stalking in the parking lot. It is the African American female that is walking down the staircase with engineered light that's all over the stairs, walking in the evidence like they're always doing, and the entity is engaging in what is engaging in what is loitering in relevant positioning. Remember, there's no warrant or probable cause to engage in surveillance and at any location. So they're engaging in what is public corruption, necessarily relying on the patrons that are present in the path. They're doing so in the library that's maintaining fanning engineer light all over the walls, and the entity maintains what is a conversation as I begin documenting that pattern of conduct. It doesn't make demons seem more normal. It doesn't make demons seem like they're not focused on you. It doesn't make demons engaging in any less of that P.O.C. It's speaking to the entity that is engaged in what is that pattern of conduct. Okay, the entity is doing so while they are psychopathic in their endeavors. This is P.O.C. That's the pattern of conduct that's underway with that entire entity that is maintaining what is the elements of monitoring. That is at what is 1:18 p.m. That's the entity that's engaging in that together as one. This is where the entity is maintaining engineer light on the walls and on the, I just want you to see, this is the environment where they're stalking in the path. This is a psychopath that's pacing all around the desks while the entity is maintaining relevant positioning, light activity, and audible noise. The initiation of the conversation is my recording the P.O.C. right now, where they are stalking by placement in the inside of the library with engineer light that's moving all across the walls. So I just want to make sure that that ongoing intent, which you're always showing, not through the psychopathic conduct of maintaining a conversation as though you're not engaged in surveillance, the entity's absurdity with regard to what is showing mental illness that fails at presenting as sanity. You're looking at the true intentions proven through that environment that defies science and common sense and nature, which is also shared with their behavior, okay? This is the entity that's engaged in everything surrounding that targeted individual, and this is the same conduct and behavior that's going to be used to diagnose actual mental illness by delusional psychopaths who are already surrounded with evidence and then maintain behavior outwardly as though you're ignorant or that you're forgetful or that you're just going to disregard that, while they maintain audible activity criminally present in the path with that entity that is stalking day and night in planes and helicopters as a corrupt government body inside of a venue where the entity is keeping a fake sun for 12 hours. That's what's relevant in informing you about the entity that's maintaining conversations around me while they are monitoring as I'm engaged in real-time documentation. Okay, that's the pattern of conduct. That's the sickness, though, behind the purpose of being captured on video. The entity stalking by helicopter. And they chit-chat right there outside of the entrance. That's what you're looking at with regard to the P.O.C. last night at, I believe it was 8:38 p.m. Yeah, 8:39 p.m. Maintaining conversation, chit-chatting like nothing is happening while they're inside of the venue. Impossible light activity swimming all across the wall. You've seen this inside of Starbucks. You've seen this inside of my hotel rooms. You've seen this on the bus of Omnitrans. None of that is sunlight, and it's also not the sun. This is the specific environment surrounded with gang stalking, targeting by the government. Maintaining a conversation while you're engaged in documentation is the same pattern of conduct by delusional psychopaths who are absurdly obsessed and consumed with you. They are, again, the entity that fails at presenting as being sane or engaging in anything else in that same exact specific environment. Everybody employed, including the gang stalker with the horrible wig, gang stalker with the demon at computer number 4, not 3, number 4, targeting together with regard to their audible activity under the guise of a conversation in engineer light. This is a psychopath with multiple shadows standing next to me, stalking in the path, conspicuously doing so as a state actor. And this is the gang violence that is shared by the entity that targets another, does so as gang members that criminally defame and make false assertions. These are the same demons lying, stating you're lying in the bathroom, while they want to maintain conversations as though they're not concerned about you. This is what is, again, all you're going to do is pay attention to the facts. These are demons that are going to be prosecuted and also assessed mentally with regard to their delusional and absurdly demented behaviors, which anyone can see as I'm exposing that to you when you're looking at what is a pathetic tactics. That's what that is. But you're sitting there looking at a computer screen and you're stalking someone. You're mentally ill and you're going to be diagnosed accordingly. It's 1:22 p.m. And what I want to remind you about is the context where you're looking at presence in the path as I'm capturing it. And it's an ongoing unlawful threat. It is pursuant to gang violence. This is all stalking. Okay? Stalking is violence, and it's violence that's shared by a population. It's also violence while they're sharing in what is psychologically harmful methods of maintaining noise pursuant to your movement and activity device usage, pursuant to demented behaviors like, oh, I'm just chit-chatting while you're stalking in that environment. The entity's pattern of conduct is going to be used to diagnose its mental illness while it is sharing in an obsessive pattern of conduct and furtherance of murder, while sharing in sexual violence and absurdly demented behaviors that do not hide the fact that it's the same exact pattern of conduct. Okay, and that's what's relevant when the demons begin a conversation right next to me. They're doing so while engineer light is flying all across the wall. And you're aware of what it is that I'm referring to. Look at every video captured inside of Starbucks. Look at every video inside of my hotel rooms where the entity is gang stalking with the Ontario Police Department, just like they are here at Starbucks, over my hotel rooms, while I am outside and the demons are driving under the sun and they want to appear as though they're normal, sane, not concerned about you, and that impossible light speaks otherwise. Okay, this is the mentally ill that are delusional, that are engaging in the P.O.C. And there's no facial expression, there's no substance of a conversation that's anything other than the bare bones elements of monitoring. They are not intelligent, they're just obsessed. P.O.C. All right, it is currently 2:31 p.m. and on the side of the OVITT Family Community Library, you will see the engineer light, not sunlight, that's serving for ongoing surveillance that the entity is engaged in. This is engineer light that's appearing underneath. Literally, the placement of the light is impossible. It's underneath covered structures. This is a pattern where you're recognizing a whole illusion regarding an engineered environment where criminal surveillance, that is gang stalking, targeting, is underway, where sunlight is the product of what is the sun that does not sit over one building for 12 hours. And it also doesn't have this gymnastics with this light activity that appears underneath covered structures where they're designed for shade. The entity's maintaining this engineer light along the side of the OVITT Family Community Library, along the columns, the same side of the library where I'm present at 8, 9 in the morning, 7 in the morning. I've been documenting for years, so the entity is maintaining impossible light in that regard as well, with regard to the fact that it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, in addition to what is where the psychopath, Abigail, who is gang stalking and monitoring my vagina, who is targeting me and is engaged in what is stalking in a psychopathic manner, where she thought, the demons thought, that no one would ever be able to prove that they are all together stalking one person. This psychopath is pointing out the code of conduct where they're in violation of the law and pointing out that the code of conduct is violated by having a snack at the computer. And that's fine. It's audible activity, relevant positioning, and it's also relevant to her gang stalking with the Ontario Police under this fake sun. She's gang stalking at 12:14 p.m. on October 24, 2025. That was at 12:14 where that fake sun is over my head at the same entrance at 10 o'clock this morning. The fake sun that's still present as I capture at 5:30 p.m. Abigail is gang stalking last night with the Ontario Police Department in the parking lot at the entrance of this venue as I capture at 8:39 p.m. where a population such as Demons, 9JXT171, Demons. This is an African American stalking another black woman, 75831C4 with corrupt law enforcement agencies, doing so while keeping the fake sun over the same entrance where I walked in this morning. This is relevant to the OVITT Family Community Library. Any entity gang stalking police departments shown to be the hypocrites that they are, the demons, the malicious psychopaths that they are, pointing out rules as a means to target me when you're engaged in violating federal law in order to commit murder, gang stalking as a fake family community library. This is relevant to mental illness when you're looking at that. This is analogous to maintaining a conversation as a means of monitoring me, and it is as fake as the wig that's on her head. And I'm talking about the gang stalking African American male, and all I do is give you screenshots. Look at the fake sun in the morning. Look at the fake sun at the same entrance in the evening. Look at the entity stalking by helicopter where she's working. Look at the entity gang stalking me in the back parking lot where she's working. Look at the impossible light activity where she's laughing like she's having the best conversation of her life. Look at the documentation of the entity maintaining this ongoing means of targeting, making inexplicable allegations that don't even make any sense, and for what reason if you're minding your business and you're actually engaged in what is concentrating on the conversation and not stalking me and obsessed with my vagina. Okay? That's when you're mindful of and recognizing mental illness. The whole act that they put on, it's pathetic. It is pathetic. It's pathetic. The fake sun's over the same entrance. That's what I just captured right now. And Abigail is also stalking while the demons are crossing path at the C Street turn circle at 2:35 p.m. And Abigail is also both pointing out the code of conduct while she's keeping my vagina under surveillance, which I also believe is illegal. Okay, I just wanted to point that out. This is P.O.C.
Oh, she's
Okay, it's all right. That's activity creation. Well, when you see my device, that's not an accident. That's psychopathic. Activity. Demons. This is indeed activity. These are demons. It reminds me of the evidence, if you recall, where the entity engaged in, if you recall the evidence when I walked into the restroom, and the entity actually had a demon that was stalking in the bathroom, and you recall that they were responding to what it was that I was stating when I wasn't addressing them, and it ostensibly has nothing to do with them. You remember that demon that was yelling out and responding to the statements that I was making? These are demons that are monitoring in the bathroom and in your life with Abigail. Abigail is monitoring, just like she was last night, with that same agency that was maintaining helicopter activity as I walk out. Okay? That's that same P.O.C, impulsive light, and doing so with regard to maintenance of noise. This is mental illness in operation, just so that you know. That's also obsession. Okay, ongoing surveillance at the doors outside of the bathroom. The same demon that's gang stalking, waddling to the library this morning under that fake sun is sitting inside of the same location where demons are engaging in surveillance outside of the bathroom, doing so while a demon is maintaining ongoing audible activity under the fake sun. It's 2:41 p.m. This is indeed surveillance that is serving to remove a sex offender as a domestic terrorist, Mike LORENZ, okay, and Derek Williams. They're sharing in that ongoing surveillance together while the demon-possessed go into the restroom to keep you under surveillance, meaning maintaining light activity, maintaining audible noise, maintaining ongoing presence, doing so while they're also keeping that evidence under surveillance. That's why they're flying over my head in the parking lot last night. That's why they're flying over my head at the bus stop this morning. That's why the entity still has a fake sun over this entrance at 2:41 p.m. Okay? Alan, John, Abigail, Alexander.
They're all sharing the so-called security guard, Securitas, that company and that demon that's wearing that Securitas uniform, monitoring my vagina, sex offenders filling the library under a whole fake environment. That environment is speaking to a stage that they're in with regard to conversations had, with regard to the focus of what they're doing inside of the building. It's all ongoing methods of activity creation. It is P.O.C. Okay, but that did bring to mind, if you'll recall, the evidence of that entity that is demon possessed and engaged in a demon that's hacking is a demon that's engaged in what is activity creation, but the demon that's engaged in what is responding, yelling when I'm not addressing them. And there's clearly not only were they engaged in responding, it wasn't the type of situation where they're like, I'm sorry, are you talking to me? It was the type of thing where they were already yelling, they were very hostile, and they were also directly responding to the statements that I was making and knew exactly what it was that I was talking about. If you recall that documentation, these are demons that are, again, very much exposed with regard to what it is that they're doing, and it's exposing sex offenders that are in positions of authority that threaten this nation. And that's, again, the Ontario Airport Board engaging in sex crimes, such as what I'm just documenting in a private space. The Ontario International Airport, the Ontario Fire Department, the Ontario Police Department, the City Hall, the Ontario City Hall, where Paul Leon has no legitimate interest in what's going on in the women's restroom, but that's where he's maintaining surveillance. That's why the fake sun's over the same Ontario Civic Center. The entities engaging in this upon my entry. I entered at 10 o'clock. It's 2 in the afternoon. At 5 p.m., the sun never saw Florida. It never left the property of 215 East C Street as of 10 a.m. Everything that you just heard inside of that private space, where you have multiple shadows in that private space, which is not created by the artificial light inside of that bathroom, is pursuant to monitoring, and those are the demon-possessed. Okay? Inside of a building, inside of a room, stalking with light is executed by maintaining that stuttered shadows, multiple shadows. The entity engaging what is pacing in that engineered light. This is the entity that is touching with light while they're present in the path, and what the demons are actually doing is pacing. They're not human beings that are normal, healthy. They're not just walking around to the opposite end trying to get somewhere or do something. They're focused on the target individual in the specific environment where they're engaging in, including in the bathroom, or absurdly perverted and psychopathic stalking conduct, which is violence, gang violence, for which Mike Lorenz and Derek Williams are going to be federally prosecuted. Stalking in bathrooms, stalking in helicopters, combining that violence with regard to surveillance and furtherance of murder is the reason for the gang violence that the entity is sharing in and being prosecuted for. Okay? This is P.O.C. That's mental illness. Okay? That's the entity that's engaged in that mental illness. So you're listening to everything that I stated. The sun does not remain over one building for 2 hours. The sun doesn't remain over one building for 4 hours. The sun doesn't remain over one building from the east side of one building to the west side of one building for the duration of the day over 8 hours. None of that is the sun at all. Okay, the entities engaging in this absurd environment while they are monitoring evidence, and their obsession is shown because they are obsessed and they do not seek to stop engaging in obsessive behaviors while they are engaging in what is a demonic ritual with regard to psychopathic means of stalking, and engaging in what is failing at presenting as being sane, being normal, being a bunch of private citizens who are surrounded by the targeted individual who's threatening everyone. Yeah, that's the entity that's engaging in the system of public corruption, and the entity is going to be diagnosed. The entity is going to be criminally prosecuted with regard to what is a threat to the public, what is being committed by enemies of this country, targeting American citizens, violating their constitutional rights, their privacy rights in inhumane ways, okay? Stalking you in a bathroom as a whole population, that's an inhumane level of sexual violence never before contemplated under federal law, and it is shared by those that go out of their way to recite to you or remind you about some sort of code of conduct when their code of conduct is a violation of existing federal law. By the way. So why don't we worry about the genitalia monitoring as opposed to eating a muffin where I'm not making any mess? But you've made a mess with regard to the law that I'm going to prosecute you with, but they are engaging in that pattern of conduct, psychopaths, delusional. Engaging in that P.O.C. while talking about a code of conduct, the entity, the federal law, is going to help these demons focus on what actually matters, okay? And the entity that is engaging what is a malicious pattern of conduct while you're being gang stalked in a venue like the library, and doing so both en route to and from that library, you're being gang stalked in that library, okay? That's the P.O.C. And that was, again, like I stated, the entity that's engaging in gang stalking is the entity that is mentally ill. It's also the entity that's under the fake sun. That's, again, across the parking lot from where the fake sun was at 7:35 in the morning. And it's across the parking lot of this, across the street and a parking lot of the same block. That's what is stalking inside of that bathroom. Okay? P.O.C. All right, it is 9:03 p.m. This is documentation of Securitas, the African-American female who was wearing orange hair on her head today. Goes about to her ear. Have a good night, Alexander. The entity is engaged in what is stalking in the bathroom with, again, the third party that was under the fake sun at 10 o'clock in the morning and is remaining under the fake sun as it's setting in alignment to me, as I also captured upon my remaining at the same computer where I sat all day long. The demons engage in the same pattern of conduct what I documented yesterday, stalking me in the bathroom and doing so while a parking lot full of sex offenders are monitoring me, obsessively stalking and monitoring my vagina, sharing corporate public joint knowledge of regarding my genitalia, and that includes every employee. That includes Myra, a homosexual predator. That includes Alexander, engaging what is stalking and terrorizing me last night with the gang member, the terrorist leader, the one facilitating gang violence amongst this sex offending entity, Mike Lorenz, and also Derek Williams is also going to be prosecuted for every aspect of this ongoing pattern of conduct because you are not retiring out of a federal prosecution as a domestic terrorist conspiring the murder of American citizens. The entity is sharing this pattern of conduct while the parking lot is full of demons that are engaging what is monitoring together. Doing so at Sarah's Regis Group, that's the significance of having the fake sun. Doing so while Wells Fargo is monitoring my genitalia. Doing so while the entity is monitoring via the roads and the highways. Molesting, as I capture on video, while the entity is stalking by helicopter, and those demons that are driving on the turn circle, molesting, and the demons that are conversing outside of the entrance. All of that is criminal presence while they're monitoring. And they're doing so while, again, homosexual predators, women that are obsessed with my vagina who are stalking me and stalking me into bathrooms on behalf of Mike Lorenz, who has conspired my murder with such homosexual predators, with the population, okay? They're engaged in stalking the OVITT Family Community Library, and that's shared by Myra. She's on surveillance cameras, her work schedule, she's here on the clock gang stalking today. She's engaged in domestic terrorism, not any constitutionally protected private speech, being on the job and fully enforcing her constitutional rights in doing so. She's engaged in a malicious pattern of conduct with the government. She's a domestic terrorist, okay? And she's also a violent sex offender. That's shared by Katie and also Alexander and Alex. They are here engaging in what is bathroom monitoring while a stalker goes into the women's restroom to aid in what is surveillance. They maintain the demons inside of the library, maintaining presence while they all wait for me to go to the bathroom before I leave. The entities engage in what is a psychopathic pacing. That's all they're doing while I showed you the fake sun and the engineer light that remains at this venue. Okay, all they're doing is pacing. They do that in the bathroom, and they wait for me to go into the bathroom, and they're monitoring while I'm in the bathroom. They're engaging in surveillance in the bathroom. This is the entity that's going to be prosecuted. Mike Lorenz is not only conspiring my murder, stalking me in furtherance of that, and psychologically torturing, while the entity is vicariously stalking on that sex offender's behalf as a terrorist agency. That's why helicopter activity over my head in the parking lot last night. That's why helicopter activity upon my exit while I'm documenting the sex offenders in the parking lot is full of them. All of them keeping one woman's vagina under surveillance. That's the mental illness shared by those who are also stalking me under a fake sun. Okay, so this is the entity that's engaged in that. That's bathroom monitoring. They all sat and watched me publish videos regarding 2022 today. The entity is engaged in that while maintaining all manner of malicious iterations of the P.O.C. That is the gang stalking security guards. That is the gang stalking employees. That is the gang stalking patrons. That's the gang stalking construction workers maintaining light activity around the library all day long while the entity entertained a fake sun that remained over me while they kept me under surveillance, including keeping my vagina under surveillance. Okay, this is P.O.C. It's currently 9:07 p.m. This is documentation of bathroom monitoring. Alrighty, that's the pattern of conduct that the entity is ceaselessly engaging in, and the entity is doing so while they're keeping the target individual who was prosecuting them, meaning this is not a successful sacrifice, and the entity is so demon-possessed, meaning so deceived, that they continuously engaged in what is fully exposed criminal activity, not understanding, not recognizing that this is not going to end well for Mike Lorenz and anybody else. Understand, the entity is posing the threat by gang stalking with corrupt police departments. They're the ones that commit the kidnappings. Everybody under Mike Lorenz, he's going to prison. Everybody gang stalking with that agency, they're going to prison, and I will be prosecuting the state of California, exposing and establishing precedent for domestic terrorism in this country. Okay, it's 9:08 p.m. This is upon my exit of the OVITT Family Community Library. This is P.O.C.
License 9KVR057. All right, and the African-American female, she's walking out of the entrance of the OVITT Family Community Library at 9:07 p.m. You could hear it in the background. She's wearing orange hair today. She's gang stalking, she's a sex offender, she's monitoring, and so is Securitas, P.O.C. All right, keeping my vagina under surveillance, maintaining a steady flow of molesting with impossible light while they're stalking me from computer station number 1 to the bathroom at the OVITT, walking on the streets, on the roads and the highways where their demons are stalking in the path with light. It's not their headlights, it's engineer light. And it's not the sun, it's the fake sun, and it's also the fake moon also, where the entity is stalking with the Ontario International Airport. This demon gets back in her vehicle after she gets out. That's activity creation, psychopathic pacing. Bethel congregation is indeed a gang stalker, okay? Gang stalkers are demons. License 9TTD854. She's keeping my vagina under surveillance with the demon that's in the bathroom at OVITT Family Community Library. Her license plate is 9UEX170. And you'll see the entity stalking, you'll see the fake moon, you'll see the plane over Bethel congregation. License plate 7CWG039, stalking from Chevron at 506 North Euclid Avenue. Well, you'll see the fake moon moving as I move. You'll see the fake moon over the OVITT Family Community Library where the fake sun remained until sunset in alignment to me while I'm sitting inside of that library. Very detailed, and they're also very detailed with regard to monitoring the vagina between my legs. 9TID854 shares in that surveillance of my genitalia and also stalking me in every step that I take to this location where gang stalking immigrants are going to be deported out of this country as well. Not just this hood over here where their venues are serving that community, but the entire city of Ontario and the state of California, and they're all vulnerable to deportation. 9KYM987, 9FTB726, 9FCP965, 9KMP104. Understand, the homosexual predator in the bathroom stalking him in concert with all of these demons' license plates. The 2EK1268 thinks he's clever by parking his vehicle in the back parking lot. He's not. He went to Emory University, by the way. Emory University with a Maryland plate. He's a sex offender and he's a demon and he's in California gang stalking. And he's also engaged in doing so with the Ontario police. He is liable for federal prison. I just want to be clear on that. This is 602A Euclid Avenue where the entity was stalking by helicopter this morning. This is the same entity that has the fake moon where the fake sun was present at 7:35. This is the entity that is following me from the bathroom of OVITT to this intersection, stalking replete with a whole fake environment. That's not the moon, it's not the sun, it's not sunlight, it's not even the natural volume of everything that you're hearing. These are demons, this is demonic. They're stalking. License 9TUA617. And while they're stalking, Mike LORENZ has a federal prosecution, and I'm going to let you know what the prophetic message is today. He's not going to get free from that. He's going to be criminally convicted. Okay, it's going to be a historic prosecution. License plate 9LOS760. The entity is engaged in what is stalking me and keeping my vagina under surveillance and stalking as a population in conformity to the pattern of conduct that terrorist organization trying to masquerade as a law enforcement agency as a cover, like the Ontario International Airport, a terrorist, not a legitimate airport, trying to cover what is terrorism that they're engaging in and that they're facilitating. That's why they're stalking, as you're recognizing that environment that follows, that doesn't naturally exist and is consistent pursuant to nature, not inconsistent based on where I go as I go, no matter how long I stay there. That's why you see what is stalking by that airport, which is also serving to convict the domestic terrorist leader, Mike LORENZ and Derek Williams, who are engaged in what is surveillance as a pattern of conduct, gang stalking me as a whole agency. That's why this population is engaging in that, in furtherance of kidnapping and murder, which equals federal prison for that terrorist leader. Just like we would treat any other foreign enemy of this country. Engaging in terrorism, and you are engaged in terrorism when a police department is stalking one person. In furtherance, moreover, to murder that person and kidnap them, in addition to being demons while doing so. Sharing in that, on top of that, with a whole population of demons. And mentally ill, all of them, every single last one of them. That's the P.O.C. And that's what's behind, I want to be clear, German, gang stalking, engaging in what is sexual assault and battery. Under the fake moon, German doesn't have a prayer. German doesn't have a prayer. He doesn't have a defense. He doesn't have any chance of remaining in this country. If he's an immigrant, he's going right back to wherever he came from. He's currently gang stalking via Chevron. Chevron is a corrupt company. Chevron is subject to prosecution. While that crime scene terrorizes me at that venue, the gang stalking immigrant Balbir in the morning terrorizing me, the gang stalking immigrant Hardick gang stalking me, the gang stalking immigrant German gang stalking me at Chevron via Chevron, which is also itself a commercial means of surveilling me in furtherance of murder with that terrorist agency that's also providing evidence against the immigrants, not just them, but all of them in the United States. Because what California is doing is speaking to what you know Texas is doing. How is it so hot in Texas? Under what sun? The sun is remaining over OVITT Family Community Library. There's only one. We can all agree on that. We can all reason together. And we can all witness the public prosecution of terrorists in this country. Terrorists like Derek Williams and Mike Lorenz. All right? The entities engaged in this P.O.C. and they are obsessed with my vagina. That is a fact. It's not a compliment. It's not an exaggeration. It's not hyperbole. It's also not imagined. It's not a hallucination, and it's not the product of paranoia. The entity is engaging in a P.O.C. and it's proving everything that they're engaging in surveilling. All the places that they're engaging in that surveillance and everyone with whom they're engaging in that criminal surveillance. It's also relevant the criminal purpose. When you're revealing what is the psychopathic levels of surveillance that they're engaging in. You have this homosexual predator stalking in the bathroom on behalf of this entity that is tracking my steps from place to place. That's relevant to the entity that's gang stalking on F Street. All right, that's where you have the Iglesia Apostolica Profetica at 115 North F Street. They're not engaging in church on Sunday. They're engaged in gang stalking me under the fake sun, which is exactly what I'm documenting. And they're engaged in gang stalking while demons are using that venue, around that venue, flying over next to that venue, where I'm subject to being targeted in furtherance of murder anywhere near that venue where the entity is engaging what is using or being around that is relevant positioning of any kind. You're going to be prosecuted. And if you happen to be an immigrant, you're being deported. That's how justice works. Those are, by the way, the pitfalls of aiding a government that's engaging in surveillance. No one feels sorry for you. No one feels sorry for you. That's exactly how this is going to work. That's exactly what they're doing. And this is the ability to literally use logic and legal reasoning and the laws that already exist to get the accurate and appropriate result, rather. This is P.O.C. You're not going to limit Walmart to being federally prosecuted for criminal surveillance because Walmart customers close down the store while they're still inside of the store stalking inventory, while the entity is stalking you by helicopter while you're parked at that Walmart trying to see if they're open and they're not open, and that police department in that city is terrorizing you in that Walmart parking lot. And when you go during the day, the fake sun is over you and all those Walmart employees are demons who are stalking and monitoring you in that Walmart. Absolutely, you're being prosecuted whether Walmart is open or closed. Walmart is a gang stalker, and they welcome that criminal surveillance system. They welcome the government and that entity of demons to use that property, be around that property, any means necessary to engage in that P.O.C. And the evidence has already established that. They're engaged in monitoring right now. This is the entity that's obsessively monitoring my vagina. That's what you see stalking in the bathroom tonight at 8:57 p.m. It's this entity. This is P.O.C. It is currently 9:26 p.m. at 537 North Euclid Avenue. Oh, let's get more video of what the entity committed at 7:35 and at 8:27 a.m. at the same bus stop under the fake sun. Let's get that. Over the top of my head. This is the prosecution of Mike Lorenz, who was a suicidal, demon-possessed psychopath, as that pattern of conduct is shared by demons who are maniacal in their tactics that are outdated because they're going to prison behind this. Every gang-stalking kidnapper, as they are exposed, engaging in a pattern of conduct where you are not coincidentally engaging in what is presence, first of all, over and over again over the same person in this environment, which is regarding what is not caused by normal light, and also, it's also not normal for you to be engaged in flying over my head at 7:30 where the sun is rising, supposedly. But I showed you what I also documented at this same venue at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock in the afternoon to be exact. And the fake sun, that's not the natural environment, because on the same side of the street over the top of my head, I'm showing you that fake sun, which is speaking to the demon possession of Mike Lorenz and every demon of that Ontario Police Department. They're going to produce the evidence of the operation of the heliport, where they're engaged in criminal surveillance with the demon-possessed people of the state. That entity that's stalking me by helicopter is monitoring my vagina. That's also why Mike Lorenz is going to be subject to a federal prosecution for domestic terrorism and facilitating terrorism. This is gang violence, and it's also gang violence centered around my genitalia in the bathroom, where demons are engaging what is stalking with absurd iterations of impossible light activity while they're stalking with the government that just flew over the top of my head, putting the people of the state, like the demons at OVITT Family Community Library, in federal prison. This is P.O.C. That's the entity that's incapable of being prepared for a federal case. Where they're engaged in targeting, there is no mental illness in existence with regard to the targeted individual. Lisa Rogan, Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, all those kidnappers, Tracy Banks, Jason Isaac Fields, everybody that defamed my character, they did so in furtherance of this pattern of conduct that the Ontario International Airport, the Ontario Police Department, the City of Ontario, the people of the state share. Seeking to criminally defame the one that you are gang stalking, you're going to prison and you will be mentally assessed. And it's going to change the laws with regard to the entity that targets you and then tries to criminally defame your character while doing so. This directly rebuts the criminal defamation that this entity engaged in. And Mike Lorenz, that agency engaged in criminal defamation, is the basis of federal prison. They defame your character while they have conspired to murder you, while they're stalking, just like this. All right, that's P.O.C. There are no coincidences amongst that impossible light activity. Here's my shadow down here. Here's my shadow up here. All right, that's vacillating impossible light. It has nothing to do with their headlights. Just like under the fake sun at 7:35 a.m., when they're driving an engineer light, the fake sun's on the driver's side of their vehicle, engineer light is luminescing the passenger side of their vehicle, and engineer light's running across this curb while they're engaged in what is stalking with light, which is mentally ill behavior by demons that are monitoring you in furtherance of murdering you with the gang stalking agency. That's P.O.C. Understand what the entity is doing, triggering American citizens. This is not me being triggered. This is me prosecuting with facts that I own. And I know what to do with those facts. But the entity triggers American citizens and then calls that mental illness. They're going to prison, and it's malicious acts of defamation. While you're targeting, they're going to prison. This is P.O.C. It is currently, by the way, you just heard that video of the entity flying over the top of my head. That's the entity that is very much suicidal. That's the entity that is very much self-destructive. That's relevant to the psychopathic behavior and the psychopathic level of stalking. While the entity is flying over the top of my head, while the demon possessed are stalking in the path by maintaining presence in vehicles and on foot, where that entity is maintaining a fake sun like I documented, where Abigail and John, Myra, Alexander, Alan, gang stalking IT demons that are monitoring. They're doing so in an absurd environment, speaking to their mental illness that is no longer closeted, and it does not present as sanity at all. They are overtly exposed as psychopaths who are maliciously targeting innocent American citizens. That's on whose behalf I'm advocating, because this is a system of surveillance that's underway throughout the state of California and in this country. Let me show you how the entity is stalking, flying over Bethel Congregation, and now flying over where I'm walking south down the street. That's where the entity is stalking by planes, and you are stalking when you're hovering. There are no airport takeoffs over Starbucks at 507 North Euclid Avenue when you're taking off from the airport's Terminal 2 and Terminal 4. They are also stalking, again, where the entity is flying over Bethel. That's where the entity flew over my head. That's the same in the Ontario Police and the Ontario International Airport. And the reason why they're not flying behind me over Bethel is because I'm not near Bethel Congregation at F. I'm walking in this direction where they remain on the south side of my person. That's the pattern that you're recognizing. While the demons are monitoring, stalking me in the bathroom, following me with a fake moon over my head, 9RWZ321, I believe, is sharing in that pattern of conduct, stalking, gang stalking on the roads and the highways as a whole society, sharing in obsessive surveillance under the fake moon that's now over Starbucks. Look at the pictures. You'll see the fake moon over the OVITT family, while I'm at the OVITT Family Community Library capturing it. While I'm facing west, and it's over Sarah's Regis Group. Sarah's Regis Group is on the opposite side of the street. The fake moon is over me while I'm facing Sarah's Regis Group, downtown Ontario luxury apartment. It's over the gang stalker, 507 North Euclid Avenue, Starbucks, who are going to prison, including while that agency is stalking me day and night as I'm capturing. They're engaged in stalking with this venue where Amelia, Patty, and Ocean are engaged in kidnapping with the Ontario police that are stalking on a daily basis with them. They're going to prison. I just want to be clear on that. The entity is engaging in that, and this is the entity that is, again, engaging in that conduct under that light source. At nightfall, it's a fake moon. It's a fake moon that's remaining over me, and it's moving as I move, and you can see it clearly with regard to movement, as it's not even relative to the position that it's at. That's not the conduct of the moon. You're looking at what is rapid movement, but yet when I sit inside of the building of the OVITT Family Community Library with regard to the fake sun, it's over the entrance at 10 o'clock. I walk out after 2 p.m., and it's still over the same entrance, okay? And when I'm sitting inside after 5 p.m., it's in alignment while I'm looking at the entrance in the depths of the building. That's relevant to what is stalking. This is what the Ontario Police and the Ontario International Airport are maintaining outside of buildings, aerial surveillance in that specific environment, and specifically stalking in obvious manners with regard to hovering. You have never taken a takeoff from 2500 Airport Drive when you are engaging in what is hovering over UNICARE Community Center now while I'm standing over Starbucks. Again, an ongoing progression. Look at the flight over Bethel Congregation at 536 North Euclid Avenue. Look at the flight over Starbucks at 507 North Euclid Avenue. Look at the flight over what is right now UNICARE Community Health Center at the same intersection on the opposite side of the street, where this demon is stalking with impossible light coming out of the Starbucks drive-thru. These are gang stalkers that share in kidnapping. The entity engaged in what is stalking together. 8 RSA 718 and license B273C1. Gang stalking with Starbucks, making purchases while the entity is stalking by planes. The entity is flying over my head. They're stalking in the drive-thru with the Ontario Police. Starbucks is still criminally monitoring while I'm at F Street, and the entity is flying over the top of my head, threatening my life and my safety and my liberty. Engaging in kidnapping is what is relevant with regard to what Starbucks committed on July 4th, 2025, under that bullseye, which is putting Ocean and everybody else under her corrupt leadership as some gang stalking barista manager. She's going to prison for that. And the entity's evidence of stalking under the fake sun is putting her and all those puppets in prison, along with, again, terrorists such as the suicidal and self-destructive maniac Mike LORENZ, is keeping my vagina under surveillance in concert with the Ontario Board and the Ontario Executive Team. The mentally ill that are engaging in domestic terrorism, engaging in that as a pattern of conduct, as that whole agency as well. That agency that's representing what's supposed to be law enforcement, they're serving to have the gang stalkers, the people that stayed deported. They're serving to have the gang stalkers, the people that stayed in prison, because everyone that engaged in what is exposed as criminal summoning pursuant to surveillance, all right, not just lying regarding what is a suit for harassment, for example. Oh, everybody lied in the city about, because it's clearly lying, but it's upon facts of federal group stalking and monitoring. That's federal prison, okay? You're doing so with the kidnappers of the Ontario Police, who I'm showing a whole pattern of them stalking me day and night. So why are you calling them and lying about it? While you're also under the fake sun and stalking me with absurd light, while you're a light-slinging gargoyle, in other words, they're going to prison. That's the entity sharing and kidnapping, sharing in that pattern of conduct. Mike LORENZ is a terrorist leader where that agency is engaging in that pattern of conduct. And they're mentally ill while they're stalking in helicopters, while they're doing so in environments that include items in the sky like a fake sun and a fake moon. They're Satan-worshipping puppets, and they're going to be subject to mental examinations and federal prison. And they will not be getting out in 6 months. Let's put it that way. They're not. Okay, this is P.O.C. The entity is stalking. You're going to look at the documentation of, again, just giving you the ability to identify what it is that I've already said, what the evidence already proves, and what you can observe yourself. The entity is progressing south down the street with planes. That's stalking, while they are remaining on the south side of my person. And the fake moon you can also look at over downtown Ontario luxury apartments, over me in the parking lot of the ARCO and the light where those demons are stalking in the parking lot, aiming light. They're doing so while the Ontario Police are keeping me under surveillance, including via those demons who maintain surveillance inside of buildings under a fake sun and amongst engineer light. That's what they're doing outside, sitting in the parking lot, aiming light around. It's not headlights that's reaching miles across the parking lot. That's the entity stalking with impossible light. And it's not a coincidence that the entity flies over the top of my head, okay? The entity is fully exposed, and Mike LORENZ doesn't have any sort of defense in court with regard to a clear-cut pattern of conduct. There is no defense. License, I can't really see that demon's license plate, but the entity is engaged in what is gang stalking with Starbucks at 507 North Euclid Avenue. They are engaged in a federal RICO case while they are making money off of gang stalking me. The entity is doing so while that entity is engaged in that pattern of conduct, such as stalking with the entity maintaining surveillance inside of whatever building that you're inside of. And they engage in gang stalking with that entity that's engaging in what is stalking me in the bathroom, okay? The entity that's engaging in that pattern pattern of conduct is keeping my vagina under surveillance, and they're doing so while that government is providing evidence. This is actually how it's coming down practically. The government is proving that the people of the state are targeting with them, and the people of the state are proving that they're targeting in conformity to the government's pattern of conduct. It's not their pattern of conduct, it's the state's pattern of conduct, and they are third parties acting in conformity to it. And that's the prosecution of domestic terrorist leaders, such as Mike Lorenz and Derek Williams. Okay? P.O.C. License plate 8FIN430. Looks like Brian is here, gang stalking. License 9HRN357 7TMU279. 9MHV529 or 520, that's Brian's vehicle, 8VDJ892. This is the entity that's gang stalking at Starbucks. The entity maintaining helicopter activity in relevant position. The entity keeping the fake sun setting at OVITT Family Community Library is federal prison for their engaging kidnapping with that entity that's engaging in a pattern of conduct that's putting them in prison. This is the idiocy behind gang stalking, because now you have the demons that can't control themselves, that fly over the top of my head everywhere when they're triggered by what I say. But I'm supposed to be the one that's triggered acting out with regard to mental illness, but no, I'm not triggered. I'm in full control of facts that are damning. I'm reading out the rights that they don't have while they're engaging in clear-cut targeting, and I'm reminding them about the people that are going to prison behind their published stupidity. All right, and it includes judges that are sitting around watching my evidence on the internet, and they're also counting down the days, because the federal government is going to be kicking your door down. You are going to be arrested. It will be public information. You're going to prison just like these gang stalking baristas, like these gang stalking librarians, like these gang stalking immigrants that are targeting me with the city of Ontario. You're going to prison, and you're not any different, by the way. In fact, there is an urgency to make sure that you get locked up where you belong. All right, the entities engaging in this amongst American citizens that cannot, under any circumstances, actually contend with the government and prove that a judge, okay, you're talking about that level of corruption combined with that level of connections, that level of power. Okay, so this is what an entity is abusing, and they're demons doing so. Satan has the demon possessed in strategic positions, and they are being systematically removed. That's what the P.O.C. is showing. That's what the P.O.C.'s purpose is, to expose the demon possessed population, to expose where the demons are in positions, specifically in government, and to have them ripped out of those, uprooted. Okay, not just removing those corrupt demons that are in these positions, facilitating this public corruption that is nationwide, but also to change the structure that they have built to grandfather, maintain this ongoing corruption that is underway, serving to murder, systematically murder and target American citizens that are unsuspecting, that have no idea what's going on. It's not just going to remove demons from position. It's going to change the way in which this system that is designed to enable that corruption to change. Okay, laws that such as where you're not even necessarily mentally ill and they can kidnap you against your will and take your property. Laws like that, where they are simultaneously engaging in surveillance and lying, engaging in what is corrupt practices, not even practicing law in the ways in which the court, the rules, the policies dictate, and at the same time you want to have authority under the law to take somebody's property and take their liberty. No, that's not going to coexist, and that is serving to change altogether. The government that cannot be trusted to do what we agreed for it to do, then that's a government that doesn't have the authority to take your property and to take your liberty against your will, such as through claiming that you're mentally ill, and you just have to believe that the government says what the government says is true, or you have to believe what the gang stalking people of the state say is true. No, that's speaking to where the entities engaging in surveillance. That's an entity that cannot be trusted, and that loss of trust mandates the change of law. All right, it is currently, by the way, where Starbucks is gang stalking at 537 North Euclid Avenue. And so is the Ontario International Airport at this venue flying over UNICARE. Remember, Ontario police migrates down the street where I am. They flew over my head at the bus stop this morning and this evening again, and they're flying over Starbucks where I am located at Starbucks. This is the pattern of conduct, and this is also where the fake moon is, proving who is the focus. Those are delusional psychopaths, and all those license plates that I just read, they're inside of Starbucks. They're still gang stalking, and they're doing so in the specific environment. Here's one shadow. Here's another shadow back here. This is an environment where they are very much specifically targeting me, engaging in surveillance, knowing where I'm at, knowing what I'm saying, gang stalking with the demons that are inside. That's relevant positioning while she's holding a prop, which is a broom. She's monitoring. This is my shadow on the wall in front. This is the pattern of conduct, and as they engage in gang stalking with the people of the state, demons that are stalking in the path in this environment under items like a fake moon, where the entity is stalking, deviating from any plane takeoffs over UNICARE Community Health Center. This is where the entity is engaged in what is providing evidence against kidnappers. Starbucks is engaged in criminal monitoring. Starbucks employees are going to federal prison. The entity is engaged in gang stalking with immigrants such as German at 506 North Euclid Avenue. German is getting deported. German's engaged in targeting me with the Ontario police. German is also subject to federal prison. Don't get that mistaken. The entity is gang stalking with also ARCO, the gang stalking employees. That's their silver Altima right there. The entity is gang stalking on the roads and the highways. That's a demon. That's a psychopath stalking with light. Keeping their foot on the brake is an iteration of stalking with light. This is P.O.C. at E Street and Euclid. That's the entity's pattern of conduct that Mike LORENZ, who is actually a terrorist leader, and that's how he's going to be prosecuted with the proven pattern of conduct. And a pattern of conduct directly rebuts that same agency's ongoing federal offenses of criminal defamation upon kidnapping. He's going to prison, and so is every kidnapper of the Ontario Police Department. This is P.O.C. It is currently 9:42 p.m. That's the airport stalking me as I walk south down the street. That's the police department stalking me as I walk down the street, keeping me under surveillance inside of the OVITT Family Community Library from morning until that fake sunset that was also in alignment to me inside of that building on this same block, POC. It is currently 9:42 p.m. Those videos are going to go on X. Those videos are going to go on YouTube. This is the video evidence that is serving to prosecute domestic terrorists and the domestic terrorist leaders. Okay, that's what the gang stalking court, the gang stalking sheriff's department, the gang stalking police departments. Also, kidnapping is underway by fire departments and EMTs that claim to be engaged in health checks. They abuse the Welfare and Institutions Code in committing kidnappings while they're engaging in surveillance with those that are exposing the fact that they're not engaging in anything other than surveillance. That's relevant with regard to stalking me day and night in helicopters, doing so to a scientific degree of certainty regarding who is specifically being targeted, probably the person that's documenting it. The entity is engaged in a pattern of conduct, acting like it's not happening, acting like it's not bothering them. And I am also not some hypersensitive plaintiff that's engaging in what is exaggerating. The entity is engaging in what is absolutely on its face harassing and disconcerting, and it's also abnormal, highly abnormal. In addition to that, it is clearly me, and while it's shared by other police departments in other counties, as I've documented, including in the state of Nevada. 8JYG688, sexual assault and battery. And that's German. A gang stalking immigrant sharing in sexual assault and battery. Chevron, ARCO, sexual assault and battery. Saris Regis Group, sexual assault and battery. The Ontario International Airport, that board, that executive team, sexual assault and battery. Glorias Cochinas, all those demons that are in there gang stalking me right now. Sexual assault and battery. Starbucks, sexual assault and battery, and all those demons on the job right now, which the entity is going to produce all of this. None of this is a mystery. I'm going to use all the means of technology to prosecute them. They are literally going to hand over their information in federal court in a prosecution. And in addition to that, you already know the instrumental names, because Mike LORENZ is going to be federally prosecuted for terrorism. This public corruption, the ongoing stalking by psychopaths having access to helicopters that agency abuses, they're going to federal prison, and so are the kidnappers of that agency. They have no reasonable suspicion. They have no probable cause. They have no authorization, no jurisdiction, authority that is under the law, because they're engaged in surveillance. And moreover, they lie and manufacture information to commit crimes against me while they're already gang stalking. They're already gang stalking, but they don't gang stalk from a distance. They gang stalk pursuant to wanting to be in my presence, engaging in criminal summoning and kidnapping, which is how domestic terrorism is executed in the U.S., the corrupt executive branch. They're going to prison. Domestic terrorists, gang stalking police go to federal prison plus mental examinations. This is P.O.C. Their mental illness is put on the forefront while you are stalking under things like fake suns and fake moons, and you're doing so using helicopters. Your mental illness is more than a kind of a problem, and your mental illness is also no longer closeted, so that it can pose a threat to other people that are not aware of it. That entity is going to produce evidence as well regarding the details of that corrupt agency, its practices, with regard to what is also supplemental, my ongoing public investigation, and it will equal a federal prosecution, a conviction of this domestic terrorist leader, Mike LORENZ and Derek Williams. Okay, this is P.O.C. It is currently 9:45 p.m. Light. Parking lot full of demons that are engaged in what is gang stalking in that parking lot. They're targeting with that agency that's providing evidence against the people of the state that are going to prison. All they're doing is stalking inside of the library. Those are psychopaths, and that's why you see them labeled mentally ill, mentally ill, mentally ill, psychopathic pacing, and engineer light under a fake sun, mentally ill, holding a conversation like they're doing something else, and everybody sees exactly what they are. They're mentally ill. They're delusional psychopaths, and so are the demons that are stalking in helicopters. Sexual assault and battery. A homosexual predator also monitoring my vagina with the stalker that was in the bathroom. License plate 7JHU720. That's the demon gang stalking at Wells Fargo, if I recollect correctly. All right, but I've read that license plate before. Nonetheless, that's a homosexual predator. That's a woman that's obsessed with my vagina, a woman that is stalking me, and a woman that's going out of her way as a demon to touch me. That is literally sexually violent conduct, not welcomed by a woman that's engaging in gang stalking with the terrorist leader, Mike Lorenz, who was stalking by helicopter. Okay, that agency's criminal conduct is Mike Lorenz's criminal conduct, and he's going to be prosecuted for it. It is 9:47 p.m., and so are the demons that are engaging in it. But he's a terrorist leader, and he's going to be federally prosecuted as a terrorist leader. He's not a police chief. All right, it's 9:47 p.m. License plate 8AYH366 at ARCO, 434 North Euclid Avenue. ARCO is gang stalking. P.O.C. Alrighty, what you will also see documented, the entity that's gang stalking is the entity Mike Lorenz is very much aware, the Ontario Board and the Ontario Executive Team, the people of the state, gang stalkers like those on F Street, those at Bethel, those inside of OVITT Family Community Library, they are all aware and are indeed keeping the evidence under surveillance. That's why the entity is engaged in what is removing it. This is federal stalking serving obstruction. Removing videos and images out of the drive where you can access it and see it, and they are removing it so that you can't see it. That's not my doing. I publish into the public folder, and I also publish what is the evidence of them moving evidence around while they're engaged in surveillance via communication devices. That's going to serve federal prosecution. That's proving that they're engaging in the surveillance in the first place. They're engaged in a pattern of interfering with an ongoing investigation. The entity's disdain, Mike Lorenz's disdain for actual law and order, his disdain for the Constitution and for the rights of an American citizen that is going to challenge his conspiracy to murder that person, that is relevant to his time in federal prison, because that's what he's getting. He's going to prison. The entity's engaged in this, and so is every gang stalking demon targeting me, just like they are at the bus stop. That's exactly what they're doing at OVITT Family Community Library. Abigail's monitoring me with Mike Lorenz and that agency. Myra's monitoring me. The Securitas security guards are monitoring me. Alexander is monitoring me with every gang stalking demon that goes in there claiming to want to check out a book. They're doing so as delusional psychopaths who think that their facial expression is legally relevant, is going to help them not look like a gang stalker, because a gang stalker looks like a particular type of thing. All right, the entities engaged in this P.O.C. and they're going to prison with the kidnappers of that agency, the Ontario Police, who provide evidence against every other terrorist agency in the U.S. and against every other entity that is acting in concert with the people of the state. It includes license plate 8YFB131, stalking at ARCO, creating what is light in the path, and doing so, monitoring while the evidence is being uploaded onto the venue of the internet. This is surveillance that the terrorist agency is relying on, stalkers that are the people of the state. Doing so under the fake moon, that's how you know that 8YFB131 is stalking. P.O.C. It is currently 9:51 p.m. All right, just to note, you should look at, I'm going to move all the evidence back into the folder, but you should take a look at the screenshot showing you the list of video and images that the entity is focused on you not seeing, because that's the evidence that you need to focus in on. In the same way, you need to listen to what is the October 27th, 2025 podcast. Listen to it again. Listen to it if you haven't found it on YouTube, because the entity is seeking to conceal that. The entity is engaged in what is hiding, and they're delusional. You're not hiding anything while you're stalking me day and night in a helicopter as a readily identifiable agency in conformity to a long documented pattern of conduct that includes those outside of Ontario, California, even outside of California. Okay, nothing is hidden, but moreover, I want you to pay attention to that. The things that the demon-possessed try to hide are the very things that you focus in on. You concentrate, you hone in on it, you magnify it. Okay, P.O.C. It includes the entity reaching into the depths with impossible light activity, which I documented at 5:29 p.m. This is that same entity that's seeking to remove that evidence from the folder. That same evidence that the entity is, again, acting like it's totally irrelevant, because you're delusional, stalking me day and night in planes and helicopters, and I'm getting on video, and I'm putting it on the internet, and I'm maintaining an investigation unilaterally, exposing public corruption, which, by the way, even before you get into the meat of any case, is already proven that this target individual is not mentally ill at all, but this is an entity that's already subject to federal prison. We're going through the formal process because I said this in 2018, I'm going to prosecute them. All right? The entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct, and the entity that's maintaining an investigation while you're being gang stalked, honey, you're not mentally ill at all. It is a supernatural means of the ability to maintain control of all of your faculties and maintain a level of professionalism and maintain a level of what is fact collection, okay? Based on facts, not emotion, not based on feelings, and it's based on the reality. Contrary to what the demon-possessed gang stalkers, what the gang members rely on, they just make up tales, and all the gang members falsely bear witness about it. That's how they come up with information. And that's not an exaggeration. The prosecution of Tracy Banks and the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, the Ontario Police Department, and the Rancho Cucamonga Superior Court, the Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, that's exactly what they've engaged in, and they're going to be federally prosecuted for that. And many are going to prison behind that. Manufacturing facts, there's no such thing. There's no such thing as alternative facts. There's no such thing as created facts, but that's what they do. And my ongoing investigation directly rebuts, that is, makes suspicious what this entity has sought to claim about my character. And it's also relevant what was happening to me while they were making these lies in courtrooms where I'm not present. And why didn't the judge, whoever was presiding, make any sort of qualms about that? Why did it go on? Why was I not there? How can this go on in your absence? This is the entity that's engaged in surveillance. Okay, that's the P.O.C. I just want to make sure that you're mindful of that while the entity is removing evidence that you're going to focus in on. And no investigation by a targeted individual is evidence supporting what would be obvious mental illness. And when you're targeting, like the Ontario police are, literally on this block as I go from F to E, that's directly rebutting, meaning it is legally irrelevant, meaning you don't even have a case. We're now prosecuting based on your stalking, and why are you stalking? And I've also laid that out. Okay, the criminal acts that this entity has committed, like theft, like fraud, like defamation. This is the entity that's engaged in a series of federal offenses upon conspiring my murder. And it is also reasonable where you're looking at what is stalking by that agency, they're doing so while they are intentionally, maliciously abusing what is authority that is given ordinarily under the Constitution to law enforcement agencies, which they intend to abuse at the outset as an organized system of crime and targeting American citizens to take their lives. That's the only way that the entity was going to be able to steal my property and me not say a word about it. Okay? Defamation was not the end. The entity has conspired my murder, solicited for my murder, and that's exactly what the Ontario police have intended and have engaged in. And Mike Lorenz is going to federal prison for conspiracy to commit murder. That's the whole purpose of gang stalking. So you need to understand, in the United States, everybody that's listening, gang stalking is the criminal conspiracy, meaning you have committed criminal acts in furtherance of a conspiracy to commit murder. You're gang stalking the government. The entity is targeting to murder somebody. You need to understand that. Because the demons in California are way in over their head. They're being deported for conspiracy to murder with the government, and they're not coming back in this country. They're being prosecuted as sex offenders as an entity, conspiring to murder the one whom they're sexually violating as a population. And you're going to prison as an agency acting in furtherance and facilitating that conspiracy to commit murder. That's why you use things like helicopters to stalk an American citizen. Yeah, you're trying to psychologically break somebody down. These demons are, by the way, very fearful of me. And that's because of my ability, my skill set. You are not first of all, you're not a man. And also you're not powerful when you have to climb into a helicopter to make yourself feel like you're responding. I don't know what a psychopath thinks that they're doing, but it's on video and it's all over the internet. And what's happening is that they're being prosecuted. That's what's actually happening. But just as an aside, you are not powerful when you have to resort to those tactics to target somebody. So anybody that thinks that gang stalkers, that demons are the cool kids, you're delusional as well. You are of the same spirit. And you need Jesus. You need Jesus Christ. You actually do. There is nothing admirable. It's pathetic. That's why they're so embarrassed as I speak facts about what they are as they do what they are doing. You don't like the truth as you hear it, and you're listening because you're stalking. This is pathetic. You're embarrassed by what you don't want to be known. By the way, when you have to maintain a secret system of being a bunch of pedophiles and thieves and frauds, there's nothing elite or sophisticated or cool about that. It's pathetic. Who said that being a criminal is cool? This is not American Gangster. None of them are Denzel Washington. You're not getting a Grammy. This is not a game, it's real life, and it's pathetic. And when you violate the law, you are suffering the penalties under the law, and you do not avoid that because you think you're wearing a position or some acronym under your name, or you hold some sort of title that's going to protect you from that. No, to the contrary, actually, the direct opposite. The Constitution and the way that it's written is diametrically opposed to that notion, by the way. There is nothing in the law that states that you are superior, and you are going to be diagnosed based on the mental illness that you brought into question. Now we're going to analyze who's mentally ill here. Is it the one that's stalking in helicopters? Oh yeah, just by a bare bones analysis on the surface, absolutely. Nobody's imagining anything. We're all looking at this together. While you're listening to my podcast and you're looking at me upload video after video after video after video after video after video, nobody's imagining anything. In fact, Mike Lorenz and Jason Knighton, Jonathan Burnett, Sequoia Payton, oh, these demons, they're the ones that imagined, they fantasized in their mind that they were going to get away with murdering me and stealing from me and then defaming me, calling me names while you're obsessively stalking me and obsessed with my vagina. You're obsessed with my vagina, all of you. That's part of the reason why they climb into helicopters to stalk me. It's an admission regarding how important I am to them, how obsessed with me they are. And that's because they are mentally ill. This is the Nephilim. They are demon possessed. That is manifesting in their demented behavior, which is also criminal and a threat to the public. You are the one that brought mental illness into the equation. You're the one that's going to be assessed with regard to your actual mental illness. That's why you don't want to play those types of games, especially when you are the one with certifiable conduct. It's you. All of you that are listening to the sound of my voice, you light-slinging gargoyles, obsessed with the vagina between my legs. It is currently 10 p.m. This is all going on the internet right now. Demons are going berserk, stalking, driving on the sidewalk, license plate 440946D. Let me show you this. This is P.O.C. All right, these are demons that are engaged in what is a desperate means of monitoring. Those are the demons that are very much perturbed by what it is that I'm stating, and they're driving on the sidewalk while they're doing so. All right, that's the pattern of conduct. Instead of driving through the driveway of ARCO, this demon drove on the sidewalk with regard to engaging what is crossing path of light activity. When the demons are very much scared of what it is that I'm stating, and understand that this is spiritual, these are demons whose witchcraft doesn't work against me, and they're very much fearful of the Holy Spirit that speaks authoritatively. That's what those are demons. The stalking with light, that's the conduct of demons, okay? The stalking with helicopters, that's the conduct of demons. Don't forget that this is spiritual warfare. Spiritual warfare that these demons already lost. They already lost. The entities engage in this conduct, and they're going to prison in the physical, and they're going to be spiritually judged by the Lord God Almighty. His name is Christ Jesus. He's the one that provided the P.O.C. All right? He is the giver of all wisdom. All right? Godly wisdom, not this worldly, lusty, demonic wisdom. Okay? The entities engaging in the P.O.C. and ARCO is gang stalking while that demon drives on the sidewalk. This is P.O.C. It is currently 10:02. All right, molesting is ARCO and CHEVRON. Doing so with German. German is still gang stalking. German is sharing in sexual assault and battery and furtherance of murder. Doing so with the Ontario police that's gang stalking me across the street from him, where he's in relevant position, sharing in that massive sex offense, sharing in that public act of violence, and doing so in furtherance of murdering me, and is also keeping me under surveillance himself. German's not innocently being documented. He is gang stalking with CHEVRON as well, who is both his employer and a third-party facilitator of gang stalking, and so is ARCO, okay? The entities engaging with a stalking in the path, driving next to Ontario Veterinary Hospital that has light activity, driving onto the entryway, the drive-through. These are demons that are stalking with light. This is the certifiable conduct. License plate 5083484, sex offender, gang stalking at CHEVRON. License plate, the demon starting their ignition while he's monitoring. That's relevant to deportation, by the way. 9PVP719. All right, P.O.C. And all right, these demons are subject to deportation. Let me go ahead and get them for you. Under the fake moon. All right, this is what the demons did under the fake sun with the the construction vehicles. He starts the ignition as I get in his path. These demons are doing so while they're engaging in sexual violence with the sex offenders that are molesting. These gang stalking potential immigrants, again, license 440946D. That's an out-of-state plate. This is mental illness while he's pacing back and forth to the vehicle. Under the fake moon that's over ARCO. This is P.O.C. And they're sharing in sexual violence with what is German. Let me give you German's license plate again. German is very likely an immigrant, granted a revocable privilege to be in this country. And while his co-defendants are all gang stalking, him, Balbir, Hardick, if any of them are immigrants, okay? Because they're not necessarily immigrants. They may very well be natural-born citizens. They are nonetheless engaged in terrorism. But if you are an immigrant, you've been granted a privilege to be here, you might as well get ready because you're getting deported, okay? German is gang stalking me right now while he's listening to me document him. He's very much engaged in that POC while the entity is engaged in what is monitoring what I'm uploading onto the internet about them monitoring me in the bathroom, stalking me in the bathroom with that predator that enters on behalf of the entity. And German's license plate is, let me go ahead and recite that. German is being prosecuted while sharing in that sex offense. And German's license plate is again license 6 Nancy Yolanda David 346. He's sharing in sexual assault and battery, including while I'm across the street at the bus stop, where it's also no mistake that they are stalking with impossible light at a distance, where I'm here and I can read their license plates. They're doing so while I'm at the 537 North Euclid Avenue bus stop, where you know that they're targeting because that's where the terrorist organization, Ontario Police, are stalking me by helicopter. They're sharing in that ongoing violence together, where German is also targeting me while I'm across the street at a distance, where I shouldn't be accosted by his gang stalking co-defendants that are shopping at Chevron in order to target me. Okay, this is P.O.C. It's currently 10 p.m. They're doing so while the videos are uploading onto X. Okay, that's the pattern of conduct. Gang stalking immigrants are being deported. Gang stalking immigrants that are targeting with the police are going to prison, and then they're going to be deported. And the entities engaged in that POC. German is leaving at what is 10 p.m. And German does not cease to be a part of the pattern of conduct, by the way. And neither is Chevron, while he has locked the doors, ceased to be engaged in what is ongoing documentation. I'm going to prosecute Chevron. I'm going to prosecute all of its employees. Okay, this is POC. It is currently 10 p.m. All right, Chevron at 506 North Euclid Avenue, where German is gang stalking, and ARCO at 434 North Euclid Avenue, where the fake moon is over me on the position of the ARCO side. That's where the demons that you hear. ARCO is gang stalking by maintaining activity. ARCO is the one that has the Wi-Fi network. So this is where the entity is monitoring on the video of the internet. And these are demons under the fake moon and engineered light, gang stalking with Chevron. That's maintaining the demons that are stalking with light. They're literally driving into the driveway of Chevron, making U-turns in the driveway, driving in and out. It's psychopathic pacing. This is the certifiable conduct by the demon possessed that are stalking with light, while ARCO is maintaining elements of monitoring to keep ongoing surveillance while the evidence of them gang stalking and for them to murder is then kept under surveillance while they're engaging in that criminal activity in real time. Mike LORENZ is going to prison, okay? License, stalking with impossible light, sex offenders 9EXK294, 9TBX471. This is mental illness, license 9TOM020, and they are stalking under a fake moon. This is the conduct of the demon possessed that are all together stalking on behalf of an agency that commits kidnappings and furtherance of that targeting system while they share in what is murdering someone as demons, sacrificing into Satan, but they share in murdering legally while it's a conspiracy to commit murder as a corrupt entity. This is public corruption that results in murders and kidnappings by that terrorist agency. Mike LORENZ is being prosecuted for all the gang stalking by Chevron, ARCO, Starbucks. This is where they're maintaining that activity. ARCO, again, this license plate 440946D. This is ARCO engagement in what is the pattern of conduct. They're maintaining audible noise and engineered light. And they're doing so while Chevron is the means of the demons pacing on and off of that property. Chevron is going to be prosecuted. ARCO is being prosecuted. The entity is engaged in what is the same exact impossible light. My shadow is in the middle of the street, and it's also on the sidewalk. That's multiple shadows in front of me, while these are demons that are again, they are requiring that you don't pay attention to the environment while they want to appear as though these are delusional psychopaths. but you know that they're mentally ill because look at what they're doing. They engage in what is stalking people under fake suns and moons, and they think that you're never going to look in the sky and that you're never going to know. But when you do look up and you do pay attention to that, you are appalled by what it is that you find and what it is that you realize. First of all, that mental illness is pervasive, that it surrounds you, and that demons are also surrounding you, and they are concerned about what's between your legs. Sexual violence is very, very common, and so is demon possession. Okay? The entities engaged in criminal activity, it's simultaneously exposing public corruption because this is all state action. So I just want to document this ongoing conduct, 4409460. That's an out-of-state plate. Potentially immigrants, and if not them, their families. They're engaging in the pattern of conduct with ARCO and CHEVRON, and the demons are gang stalking, engaging in what are transactions with that facilitating venue, sharing in what is sexual assault and battery, and criminal monitoring and furtherance of murder. This is P.O.C.